Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our April General and Finance Committee meeting. I'd like to call this meeting to order at 9 a.m. I would like to confirm that we do have quorum and we continue to be in a hybrid setting. So for those of us attending here today, please note that we do have a couple of councillors still attending via Zoom, and that often is how we see delegations still as well. So continue to be in a hybrid setting. I'd like to confirm we have our CAO, clerk, and members of our senior management team here and present. Advise that we do have, no, sorry, we don't have any comments, but we continue to invite public comment at TML public comment at muskokalakes.ca. Reminder that today's meeting is being live streamed and recorded on the Township of Muskoka Lakes website and YouTube channel. By participating in the open public meeting today, you are consenting to your image, voice, and comments being recorded and posted online. I'd like to confirm that we did receive a supplementary agenda for item 5A, and that is the presentation on the compensation review. At this point, I'd like to ask committee if there's any disclosures of pecuniary interest. Councillor Nishikawa.
Item 11A. I am a secretary for the board.
Thank you. Thank you. Any others? Okay, seeing none. Reminder that the motions have been pre-populated with random movers and seconders to expedite the meeting, and that voting, our members shall physically raise their hand until the chair has confirmed the vote. If the vote is unclear, a verbal vote shall be recorded by the clerk, and that this is not considered a recorded vote. So we will now move on to item 4A, and I'd like to welcome to the podium Ms. Hayes with your presentation on the Walker's Point Barlocken Archive Group. Thank you.
Good morning, Deputy Mayor.
Oh, I think you mean your mic, Danelle. Thank you. Thanks, Danelle.
Better?
Much.
All right. Good morning, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, committee, staff, and any public watching. I'm Danelle Hayes from 1051 Woodwinds Road on Walker's Point Barlocken. I'm here today representing the Walker's Point Barlocken Archive Group and Hall Board. I'm here today to ask for committee's help and commitment in securing funding for the last step, no pun intended, of our military memorial project. In early 2017, the Archive Group, in conjunction with our Hall Board, presented plans to the Public Works Director to create a living military memorial at the Walker's Point Barlocken Community Centre. This plan included a living document of all military personnel who had ties to Walker's Point Barlocken, a military memorial rock to reside at the community center, a dedication ceremony to commemorate the occasion, and steps for access to the memorial. I cannot tell you the exact number of dedicated hours that have been devoted to this project, but on October 28th, 2018, the book was ready, the memorial rock was in place, and a dedication ceremony attended by approximately 200 people took place. The mayor-elect and several councillors were also in attendance. The volunteers took a well-deserved brief rest and in 2019 started plans for the access steps. Then COVID hit. Our plans were put on hold, and once normal work resumed, everything was delayed. The steps were installed by a local contractor in late October 2024, just in time for our very first Walker's Point Barlocken Remembrance Day ceremony. One of our residents who placed a wreath that day is a veteran of the Korean War. Without the steps, access for her and indeed other citizens with physical limitations would not have been possible. We all know what happened to prices after COVID, and we had secured a grant and the cost exceeded the grant. Under past normal circumstances, and being that this was a township approved physical improvement on their land, we would ask the township for a tax receipt for the extra cost. In talking with Ken Becking, the former Public Works Director, about the prices, he assured me that because it was on township land and the project had his endorsement, not to worry about the overage, he could find it in his budget or through the provision of a tax receipt. On that basis, and after the project was completed and a final cost was determined, I asked Mr. Donaldson what information he needed for a tax receipt. He advised me that due to the changes in the CRA requirements and the township policy, we do not qualify. I've read both the CAR requirements and the township policy, and I'm still not sure why we don't comply. So I'm here asking committee, how don't we comply? What do we have to do to comply? And if a tax receipt is not possible, what other avenues are available to us? If something has changed in the way that we request a tax receipt or in-kind application, it might be wise to alert other hall boards and other groups, as this is how the public traditionally secures enhancements for the township. The full bill for the stairs, the stones, and the installation was $3,861.78, of which $2,000 was paid by the archive group, leaving a difference of $1,861.78. And we're here today to ask for a tax receipt for that amount. And we would appreciate any help or guidance that you can give us on this matter. So I'm here for any questions if you have any.
Thank you very much. So just a committee, a reminder, we will be asking questions of the delegate right now. And then as discussed, we will be talking about it later on, and our clerk will follow up with any subsequent next steps. Committee, do we have any questions? Okay, Councillor Nishikawa and then Councillor Edwards.
Sorry, through you. Just to the delegate or to staff?
To either is fine.
Well, Mark. What's up?
Okay.
That's all I can ask. I'm not.
Okay, Director Donaldson. I don't know what, could you have a specific question?
I guess it's the question that Donelda had asked, and why don't we qualify? And I'm also sat around this table for many, many years, and we used to issue these all the time. And so, yeah,
Okay,
I don't quite understand why this particular situation doesn't qualify.
Okay. Director Donaldson.
So through you, Chair. So my understanding is in-kind receipts have been issued in the past, and that's correct. Services are explicitly ineligible under the Charities Directorate and our policy, so that the actual work being done by the individual is not even a point of discussion. In this case, work was performed on our property, but in speaking with Corey Moore, and I don't know what conversations happened with Ken Becking previously, but Corey didn't seem to have any indications that this work was happening, but that's also not a pertinent point to this. Really, it's about the fact that the request to receive a tax receipt was in payment for work that was performed. And again, under the Charities Directorate, you are not allowed to issue a tax receipt in exchange for services that are done or like that. That would require an actual check swap to occur. We would have to pay the invoice, and then the vendor would have to then donate the money back to us and then receive a tax receipt. So that was why this particular request was ineligible when it was proposed.
Okay. And thank you. And we will follow up with the next steps later on in the agenda. So if we'll just keep our questions to the, yep.
No, I just wanted. The reason why I wanted to just take a moment, because quite frankly, our sports park would never have been built.
Okay.
And it was in lieu of work that people, so I'm just not sure. I guess things have really changed.
Thank you.
Yeah, and through you,
Director
Chair,
Donaldson.
and I can't speak to when the Charities Directorate may have or may not have changed rules, or how we may have applied rules in the past. But I've been trying to be very diligent in ensuring that we're compliant with all the rules of the Charities Directorate to protect our charitable status.
Thank you. Councillor Edwards and then Councillor Zavitz. Questions?
And that two things. Had the organization given the full amount of funds into the township as a gift, and then the township done it, would have been eligible at that point? That's one question.
Director Donaldson.
So through you, Chair. So any donation to the municipality would qualify for a tax receipt.
That's what I thought. That was one thing.
Okay.
Secondly, the shortfall of the $1,800 and some odd dollars seems to be the stairs, not so much the actual monument itself. So that would be a national improvement, would it not be, to our property as a gift?
So through you, Chair. So if that was donated to the, if those stairs, if the stone was donated to the municipality, that would be eligible for a charitable receipt.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Zavitz, I saw your hand up. And then Councillor Roberts.
Well, thank you. Through you. So I guess instead of a tax receipt, it seems so obvious to me, and we've entertained this many other times around this table. Why would we not, as a council or as a group, a committee, not just simply reimburse the $1,800 to these people? And the reason being, is I do put some muster in the whole thing that, our previous director of Public Works,
So do we have a question?
Made a
And I'm
commitment.
asking
Yeah,
because we're
so-
moving into the
so
conversation.
to, I guess to staff, if I could, to staff, instead of this discussion about a tax receipt, could we not discuss simply compensating the group for the $1,800 shortfall?
So through your chair, so that would be a matter for committee to discuss, but that wasn't the request from the delegate.
Thank you. Councillor Roberts.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you to Mrs. Hayes. Donalda, you mentioned that you had got grants. From where did you get that? I believe I heard that. From where did you get the grant?
We applied to the township, I think in 2019 for a $2,000 grant to finish the stairs. When the prices came back after COVID, I went in and dropped in and saw Ken. And I said, like, we thought the 2,000 would cover it. We were surprised that prices had gone up so much, at which point he told me that some of his prices had doubled and tripled and to not worry about it. I will say, though, that the contractor that put it in is one of our heritage families. His family has been on the point since the beginning. And when he knew that we only had $2,000 to put the stairs in. And when we were finished, he said, the rest of it considered a donation to the community. He said, I couldn't do anything less than what I did because this is going to be here long after both of us are gone. So he's looking at it as a donation to the community. We're just looking for a donation, a recognition of that and a tax receipt for that amount.
Just a follow-up then, Madam Chair?
Yes.
Thank you. Then you were actually allocated, your committee was allocated, or group was allocated $2,000 through the community grants program, but you did not use that amount. Is that correct?
No, we did use that full amount. That was the $2,000 that offset the 3,800.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
And
Thank you. Mayor Kelly.
Thank you, and through you, I'm trying to see if we can find some way to do this. You have not paid the last $1,861.
that is correct.
And if I understood Director Donaldson, if that amount were to be paid and donated back, it might qualify for a tax receipt, or did I misunderstand that?
Through the chairs.
Yes.
So yes, through the charities directorate, if an amount is paid to a vendor and the vendor then returns it back to the charity, then they've effectively made a donation to the charity, but it's a check swap is what it's called.
Okay, thank you.
Just as a
Supplemental.
follow-up, you use the word charity. Does the payor have to be a registered charity?
Through the chair, no, we're the charity as a recipient, yes.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, seeing none. Thank you very much. Thanks for the great work that you are doing
Could
in
you
the
say
community.
one more
Oh,
thing?
yes.
The actual physical stones for the stairs, there are 3 of them. They're worth $500 each. And the 3 stones that kind of bookcase the stairs are worth $150 each, which would be a physical donation that could qualify for a tax receipt without the money going in and going out. So just,
Thank
you
you.
might want to keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. As noted, we will be discussing that a little bit later in today's meeting. So thank you very much. Moving on to item 4B, it's my understanding that Mr. Jaglowitz is not attending today, but we all did receive his communication yesterday, so we will have had an opportunity to read that as a committee. And so thank you very much, Mr. Jaglowitz. Instead, I do note, though, one of our counselors did speak to Mr. Jaglowitz, and so later on in today's agenda under new business, when we are discussing that item, we will still discuss his request at that point. So we will be moving on from 4B now on to 5A, and I'd like to welcome our clerk to the podium, Director Peroshi.
Good morning,
Thank you.
committee.
Good morning.
Before you are the results of the council remuneration review. At this time, I would like to welcome Jane Mizanski of Gallagher Benefit Services Group, who is here to present the results.
Okay, thank you and welcome.
Thank you. I take it I'm sharing my screen with the slides.
Good question. I think we are.
Okay,
I
that's
think, I
good.
think we will manage it from our end.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. Oh,
And
all right.
can you see it? Are you able to see that?
Not yet. Not yet. No, not yet. In fact, I can't see anything. But if you're up and running, I guess I'll just start on blind faith that I know what slide we're on. So if it's the cover slide, we'll just move to the first one with the documentation on it. So I've been before the council before and appreciate the opportunity to have undertaken the compensation review for the non-union staff. And then in this instance, we've been extended the opportunity to review the council's remuneration policy and expense practices. So it's basically looking at municipalities of similar size, similar scope of services, same as we did with the non-union review, to determine, you know, are your practices, are the level of compensation. I'll use the term equitable as opposed to competitive. Doing council remuneration is not the same, obviously, as doing a non-union staff review, where we're actually looking for competition to attract and retain your employees. In this instance, we're looking to making sure, as best as possible, the remuneration that's being provided, is it reflective of the roles and responsibilities, which is, you know, really a very subjective approach. Does it recognize the time commitments? And we're understanding, having done a number of these reviews, that councils are increasingly, I don't want to use the word saddled, but are accountable and being given agendas. I've heard of 400-page agendas being distributed in some municipalities. That's a lot of documentation to go through, whether you're on a bi-weekly council agenda meeting or not. These are extensive documentation that you have to go through. So a lot of time commitment to make sure that you're informed coming to the meetings, to be prepared to have good, robust discussions. So it's the time commitment that's required. And that's just the council meeting part of it, as opposed to your constituent work as well, which can be 24/7 and very hard to measure, but it is recognizing the time commitments. Fair and reasonable, is it relative to what other municipalities of similar size, similar growth, similar activity going on? Is it comparable to what they're compensating theirs? We can only use that as a benchmark. And then again, as with any compensation issue, you want to make sure that it's fiscally responsible, fiscally sustainable within the organization. Keeping in mind what's going on in other municipalities, but as well as what's the availability of an affordability factor within your own municipality. So the report that I have provided outlines the findings of our review and some observations for council's consideration to make some changes to those compensation practices and expense policies. Next slide. So the external market review, we selected the 12 comparators. Generally, these align with the comparators that we used in the non-union staff. That tends to be more of our best practice that we like to use. I know there's concerns whether, is it really reflective of your municipality? And I have to be honest, every municipality says that they are unique, and they are. But we try and have some, some that are a little larger, some that are a little smaller. In this instance, we also took into consideration that seasonal influx because it does impact on the services that are being provided by the municipality. And then, predominantly your geographic area as well. So there's the 12 comparators, and we did have all 12 participate. We did a survey questionnaire for these participants. They filled it out, providing us with information on what's the base remuneration that is being provided to councillors, to mayors and deputy mayors. Are there any per diems being paid to any member of council for whatever reason, whether it be for a committee, additional council meetings, or in addition to your base remuneration for all council meetings, or for training opportunities as well? And then we took a look at allowable expenses. We used to do a little bit more extensive searching on, accommodations and meal allowances and things, but it tended to be pretty flat across the organization. So now we're really looking more at, do you get a car allowance, or is the kilometer rate competitive across the province, or is it in line with the Canada Revenue Agency? And if there's any other cash allowances that are made available to the members of council. And then the last area that we kind of look at is benefits and pension. Insured benefits, are these made available to council members? Is there anything in lieu of benefits in the formal plan enrollment or the pension plan? Again, enrollment in OMERS, is that an opportunity? Or some municipalities may offer pay in lieu of like a contribution to an RSP plan, matching any member's plan. So we took the results of that survey and tabulated them to provide a basis of comparison for these municipalities and for the township. Next slide. On aggregate, when we look across all of the 12 base pay remuneration, the mayor position, the mayor compensation right now at the township of Muskoka Lakes is the basically 53,600 almost. And it is aligned, I will say aligned with the market P60 position. We're using market P60 because that is your pay policy for the non-union group as well. And at that rate, the market is coming in at 53.9, so just slightly below that number. And we would say that anything within plus or minus 5% is being aligned to the market, or if it was non-union, being competitive to the market. When we look at the deputy mayor compensation and each of the councillor compensations, they are sitting below the target pay policy for P60. And in the report, I have the rank order as well for each of the positions. And you can see from that listing that the deputy mayor and councillor are the third and the fifth lowest, respectively. I've also included in the chart the total number of members. I make note that the township actually is one of the largest townships within the comparator group. The average size is 8 and the market P60 number is 9 members. So you are larger, and that's why the number in that far column where it says percent difference is showing at 14% larger than the market P60. As a result, even though your salaries are lower, you've got more members that are being compensated. So if we look at the total budget for the township, total base salary budget for the township, you are actually slightly above the market P60 by 12%. Next slide. Other payments that have been made or that were reported on the per diems, there's 3 of the 12 comparators that did state that they provide an actual meeting per diem. There's also one other comparator that does provide a meeting allowance. And so it's a lump sum amount that is paid to each of the members. I believe the mayor was around the $8,900 mark, and the councillor was around $5,400. what we did is we just added that to the base salary because it's an automatic compensation that they receive regardless of the number of meetings that they attend. So we considered that base pay. That's for any council meetings, ad hoc meetings, any committee work, any other activities, or sometimes there's special meetings that are over and above the normal that are scheduled for the year. So that's the 3 out of the 12 that are paying additional compensation for those meetings. 7 of the 12 comparators, though, they also provide a per diem for members that are attending a conference. The concept there would be that if you are, let's say you are a full-time employee at another organization, or you're full-time employed elsewhere, and then you attend a conference that takes you out of town, or even if it's in town, but you're gone for a full day, you're gone for a couple of days. If you have full-time employment, you have to take a vacation day or a paid day without leave. And so this per diem for training opportunities is usually to help compensate that. It doesn't totally cover any lost wages from a full-time employment. But it does help to mitigate that. And it's important for council members to attend these conferences as well, to understand what's going on in the rest of the province across different groups of types of municipal groupings. The average per diem, when we look at the 7 out of the 12, it is about $130 per diem, and it does range from a low of 110 to 150. In terms of the township's practices, right now you are only providing a per diem for the council member that's a member of the Committee of Adjustment, and that per diem is 150. So the amount is reasonable within what the others are paying, but it's very, very limited in scope in terms of where that per diem is being applied. Next slide. One area that we did explore on request was the training budget. The predominant practice that we were finding across these 12 comparators is that they just have a general training budget. They say, here's the funding. It's anywhere between 21 and 55,000, and all members have access to that training budget. There was one, I think, that actually had a specific dollar amount attached to each, like the mayor would have so much allocated for training, and then each councillor would have so much allocated for their training for their period of time for the year. This is all on an annual basis. Number of conferences, it was a little bit generic in their responses, but what we synthesized the numbers down to is usually it's 2 to 3 conferences per year per councillor, or it was not specified. It was just a general bucket of money, and to be used and allocated as needed, or as people are interested in attending conferences, because not all people can attend conferences. So you might have an allocation to a specific individual. That councillor is unable to use that allocation. So it makes better sense to have it more as a general dollar amount that others can access. One of the comments we did also receive in the analysis was that councillors, although they might say, we would like to keep you to the 2 to 3 conferences per year, but if there's another situation where councillor says, look, I this is of specific interest, or, application to our municipality and the committees that I'm on, so wanting to attend a conference, and so that goes to council for approval. So there is that added flexibility. The township of Muskoka Lakes, you actually have a fairly small budget, but you've got a larger council size. So that means that even not only is the amount smaller, but it's even smaller because you have more members that you're spreading that across. So some opportunity for consideration in that regard. Next slide. The other payments regarding insured benefits, pension eligibility, or pension enrollment. I apologize, in my table in the report, I think it says 6 yes and 5 no's, but it turns out that there's 9 out of the 12 comparators are offering either access to the insured benefits plan that's available to non-union staff, or they are receiving pay in lieu. Sometimes it's the amount of the contributions that they would receive in lieu of enrolling in that benefit plan. Or a trend that we are seeing much more predominantly now is health spending accounts. Health spending accounts are becoming a more favored option because they're not age dependent, whereas insuring through the insured benefits plan, you do have age limitations. So a health spending account is a little bit more equitable. It's like saying, hey, you can have a benefit, but you're not eligible, so they're good for us and bad for you. So the health spending account does provide that. It materializes better for the organization. The township here is, I'll call it more as a leader in this regard with the benefit plan, is that you are offering a health spending account, and your amount is fairly robust at $4,000 per member. So that's a leader in that regard. When it comes to the pension, it's not a common offering across the townships, either with this comparator group in particular or across all of the municipalities, the smaller municipalities in particular, where you tend to be part-time type of positions or status. So right now you're aligned with what that practice is across the group, the comparator group, where you're not offering the pension enrollment opportunity, nor are you offering any RSP contribution matching in that regard. And that's comparable to what your comparator group is doing. Last slide. So wrapping up all of the analysis, we've come up with some recommendations or some opportunities for council to consider changes to their current policy. The first one is you're aligned to the 60th percentile, so we want you to maintain that alignment because it does align with the non-union staff and it seems to be appropriate for that employee group. The second opportunity is to adjust the base salaries. So with the mayor being within that plus or minus 5% of the target pay policy of P60, we're okay. So we're saying maintain status quo for the mayor's base, but adjusting the deputy mayor and the councillor right up to that P60 number, which is $32,009 for the deputy mayor and $29,673 for the councillor position. So that's kind of an all-in. Everybody then is pretty well right at P60 for 2025. Being mindful of the cost and the leap that would take to bring you up to the P60, using my benchmark of plus or minus 5% is within that competitive zone or that comparative alignment zone, then you could consider moving to get the base pay so that it would show up as within 5% of that P60 number. So then we have the deputy mayor being $31,338 and the councillor is moving to $28,252. The next option is to introduce a per diem, and this can be, and I believe the cover report from staff provides some options as well. So it can be, if you have so many meetings scheduled at the start of the year, including special meetings, you could have any special meetings or council meetings that are called over and above that stated amount are then eligible for a per diem. You could specify that it's for committees, committee of the adjustment being one that you already offer, but there's other committee work that is that requires your attention. And so you can take a look at which committees you want to make eligible for this per diem. And then there's ad hoc working groups as well. So it's a way of helping to balance out the additional load or work effort that's required to attend council to review and prepare for the council meetings or the committee meetings or ad hoc working group meetings, as well as the time to attend those meetings. And then the last option here is to amend your training policy so that you have more flexibility, whether you change that budget of I believe it's 15,000 that you have right now, which might be an opportunity to increase that budget. But at the very least, maybe open up the rules around who's eligible and how many you're eligible to attend. So in other words, the distribution of the training budget. There is another recommendation in the report as well, and it's really to just continue to have, conduct market reviews. We are conducting reviews as a recommendation for staff every 3 to 5 years. And then in our report, we're suggesting that you conduct a review similar to this at least once per term of council. And that's in keeping with what we see across the sector. And that's the last slide, I believe.
Thank you. I'm going to welcome Director Peroshi back to the podium. Help us shape the next part of our conversation.
Thank you. So prior to committee's questions and comments, I would like to note that the report before you contains a recommendation for the annual financial remuneration only. The remuneration is required to be reviewed per our current policy once per term. And so this is why the recommendation speaks to this specifically. If approved, it will form the bylaw that is typically passed and would come into force and effect for the next term of council. You will note that staff have outlined the additional options from the consultant for consideration within the report. These options and potential changes would be made to the council remuneration and expense policy. So where the remuneration is set by bylaw, that pertains to the resolution in front of you. Anything else would be changes made to our policy. Should committee wish to proceed with any of the options outlined or any other options, committee would simply need to pass an additional resolution to direct staff to bring back proposed changes to that policy. We now stand for questions. If you have any.
Okay, thank you. So committee, I do have the resolution that was within our report, and as noted by Director Peroshi, that just is to do with the base pay. So that we could have the discussion on that first. And it sounds to me like the other portions of the consideration that are within the report, we can handle as a secondary or separate discussion and draft a resolution depending on the outcome of those discussions. So perhaps what I can do is ask for questions first on the actual base pay and what this resolution is. Okay, questions? Councillor Nishikawa.
Thank you. And I'm not sure who this goes to. This conversation is interesting for me because I've done it many, many times over. And it always strikes me is that I hear from our ratepayers how poorly we're paid. But also we restrict ourselves quite a bit. And you know, we've heard that, for instance, the activity that happens in Muskoka Lakes it's very, very busy. And I'm just always curious why we're always catching up as opposed to being more of a leader as far as the salaries and that type of thing, the base salary in particular. And so because the numbers that we're comparing are today's numbers, but in fact won't be in place for another year or so. So we're already going to, and they're all, you know, everyone else is going to be bumping up their thing. So I'm just not understanding when we'll get to a better level, I guess. Maybe a consultant.
So it sounds like the question, I just want to make sure I'm clear. So the question is that if we approve the recommendation as it is today, that takes us to the 60% as to what the current standard is. But in a year and a half, when it would be in place, would it still keep us at that level? Is that correct? Correct?
Yes.
Okay. Director Peroshi.
Thank you. So in the recommendation in front of you, we did take that into consideration. So the amount that, per the resolution, the amount that would be approved would be the recommendation plus cost of living for next year. So we would include cost of living for that as well. Whether that addresses the concern, I'm not sure, but that was added into the resolution so that we wouldn't be behind that 1 year.
Okay, thank you. And I think that there's another part to this question, so perhaps you can clarify.
Well, it does. Quite frankly, we're just keeping up. Like I don't see, I would just say that to attract counselors, we should be prouder. We should be making salaries a little more attractive. I'm talking about younger people.
So
And
we
so
will get to the discussion part, but I just
No,
want to
but
make
I
sure that
wanna-
you answer, that they get to that answer, which is I think what you were asking is if other municipalities that are in our comparator group go through the similar process and they
I
get
d-
bump up.
No, I wanted to
Okay.
get you're going
Okay.
somewhere, but not. Again, it's more a cost of living increase of the basic, we're expected to receive that is not a bump up to that level. And I'm not trying to understand how to be Seguin, for instance.
Okay, so I'm not sure who to turn this to. Is it to yourself, to the
Does Jane want to give it a try?
Yeah, maybe.
Jane?
Well, you want me to give a kick at it? Okay.
Okay.
Just in general terms, we've done a number of council reviews. I've been in the consulting business for a number of years, as you can tell from the gray hair. Not that the council remunerations have given me gray hair, but anyways, so we've seen a lot more council reviews being requested. Council, because you're voting on your own pay, essentially, which can make some people uncomfortable. That's why often the recommendations are couched in terms of making the recommendation to get to a target pay policy level for the next term of office. So you're not filling your own pocket, so to speak, which could be perceived by the general public as not a positive thing. However, what we are also seeing now too is that as I said at the outset, the volume of what you're dealing with, I've done a review for Tiny just recently. We've done Town of Blue Mountain, we've done Collingwood, and these are all growing municipalities, lots of activity that's going on. The push is moving. COVID did tremendous things to municipalities where the development work is becoming far more complex. The social issues that you're dealing with is far more complex than just, the good old days where you talked about a park bench and a street light. So it's become more and more complicated. The due diligence that you have to do for your own report reading and making sure that you're informed is now starting to weigh on councils. And so councils are starting to recognize that and say, hey, we know that, this can kind of look a little self-serving, but it's really not. It's for the good of the community because you want people that will invest the time to do the due diligence, to make the right decisions for the municipality. And in order to do that, we've got to pay more than minimum wage or less than minimum wage if you added up all of the hours that you contribute to your time as a member of council. I think I've just rambled a lot, but really it's the hesitation is more of sometimes public perception. Thank
you. Councillor Roberts and then Councillor Bosenworth.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I am fully in line with Councillor Nishikwala's position. There was during the presentation by Jane, it would talk about time commitment and large agendas. I don't know. I believe our time commitment is significant and our large agendas are large. You just look at today's agendas that we have on the docket. I think that one time we used to joke.
I just want to make sure we're getting to a question.
So I'm supporting this, and I'm going to get to the question on the mayor. And I'm using the table that's on page 30 that lists the current mayor salaries. And Muskoka, I'm going to round off here, is 53.5 currently. And Bracebridge is low, Gravenhurst is low, but we're looking at Georgian Bay at 62, Huntsville at 59, and Lake of Bays at 54. I think there should be a bump up on the mayor's salary, and given the scope of demand and work on the mayors within the township Muskoka Lakes, and responsibilities now with the. So that's my question.
Chair, point. So what is the question here?
My question is, I guess would be more in the discussion. I'll leave it till then.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Boseworth.
A question to Jane. How is it that we are so far, that we are below our target? How did that happen? Which is a sort of another way of asking the same question that Councillor Nishikawa had.
Okay, thank you.
I'll take a stab at it and then I'll hand it over to Sarah and Crystal. My understanding is that this is the first time you've had an external review done by an external consultant, by a third party. So I'm not sure if there's maybe more robust data that's come into play. Although you've had, updates to your compensation, it may not have been fully informed by what's going on in the municipal sector. The other aspect is you've fallen behind because, as I said, I've done, out of this comparator group, I've done at least 3 or 4 of them already just in this past year. So they're leaping ahead. And so if you've not kept pace with them, then you're falling behind. If your annual cost of living as well is on the lower side than what these other municipalities are offering, then even to an earlier question, if you get to P60, if you don't keep up with that cost of living as well with what your comparators are doing, you're going to start sliding behind again. So it's a couple of pieces, is getting you to the P60 because everyone else has been moving there and that's why you're lagging, and then maintaining your P60 by appropriate levels of cost of living adjustments.
Okay. Supplemental?
Did you get any information from the communities or the municipalities that you looked at about where their target level is? We are at P60. Do they target for different amounts?
There are a number of them that are at P60. Off the top of my head, I don't recall what it is, but it is the trend generally that municipalities are moving to P60. It's no longer competitive. Usually it starts off with your non-union staff, looking at where we want to target for that. For competition, it's no longer effective to be the middle of the road. So they're migrating to P55, P60, some of them P65. And so usually what happens is council policy aligns with the non-union staff policy. So specifically out of this group, I'm not sure off the top of my head, and I don't want to have to correct myself, but it is a trend that we are seeing is P60 is where they're moving to.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Burry.
Thank you, and through you, I do have a question, and that is, it seems to me that we could solve a lot of the problems by reducing the size of council by 3 members.
So
when would we consider doing that? If we reduced council by 3 members, this bucket is easily distributed by the remainder, and it might also solve the issue of not finding enough good councillors.
So I think that's a separate.
So I'm asking the question, when would we consider the size of council?
Okay, so perhaps what we can do is table that question and we can ask it afterwards. But right now I'd like to focus on what we currently have, which is in front of us right now. And I would look to committee if there's any other questions for our consultant or staff on the base pay portion. Okay, seeing none, what I will do is I will read the resolution. We will have a discussion then on that resolution, that portion, and then we will move to the policy side, which is the per diem training. And I think there was one other, but I think it's just those 2. So moved by Councillor Boseworth, seconded by Councillor McIntyre. Be it resolved that staff be directed to draft and present a remuneration bylaw for consideration for the 2026 to 2030 term of council as follows. 1, maintaining the base remuneration for the mayor plus cost of living effective November 15th, 2026. 2, adjust the remuneration for the deputy mayor for 30 to 32,900 for plus cost of living effective November 15th, 2026. And 3, adjust the remuneration for councillors to $29,673 plus cost of living effective November 15th, 2026. Committee, are there any comments? Councillor Nishikawa.
I'm not sure who or how to, but I do believe that we are just chasing to catch up and that something more significant. And I'm not sure if that is part of a benefit package. So interestingly, I will say that in the past, we were not. There are some people that believe that this should be a volunteer job. That was the reactions over the past years, and quite frankly, it was the MLA's chairs at the time of I'm going back to the early 2000s and things. So, but it's interesting because then we found other ways to compensate councillors was, quite frankly, through a benefit plan, the dental plan, and I would say that's actually fairly high, given now that the age around the people that are using that plan, but also, and changes within the country about dental plans, for instance, and how, so I think our salary got lowered because we increased that dental plan, but it's still low. Like, so the overall picture, I just think that we should be making an attempt. And again, I'm really concerned about bringing on younger people, and a 2% increase, for instance, that's not even going to get them close. So my concern is that we should be engaging a little bit more about the future of this council.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other comments on the resolution as read? Councillor Zavitz?
Thank you, and through you. I guess and again, all 10 of us are going to have a different opinion, perhaps. I almost wonder if we should defer this for at least a month to consider, because, I think it's a number of things at the table. Councillor Berry, talking about, the quality of people or the quantity of people that we get at an election time. We had 18 people came out to try to get elected in 2022. We're sitting around the table. So there were 8 people that didn't get elected. They would have come forward for their reasons, personal. I don't believe it was financial, because anybody that you don't do this for the financial gain, personally. I think it's nice as an offset, and it helps when you're invested in the community and you're doing the things you are. It compensates you for time and energy. But I think our medical benefits, that $4,000 is pretty significant, to be quite honest. And I think even the remuneration that you're talking about of a 10% increase, going up to 29,000 or whatever, or we're still chasing it and not being negative, but, or looking for more. I kind of don't understand that. I mean, we're going to have an election next year. People are going to come forward, and the people that are going to come forward aren't going to come forward, I don't believe, because, oh my gosh, I can make $38,000 a year working in this isn't a full-time job. This is not a full-time job. So then it comes down to, I think, the quality of the time you put in and or the time you're required to put in. We don't have subcommittees in this particular, I'm not going to get on a soapbox here, but so you really have 2 days a month of meetings, a lot of reading and preparation for these meetings today and tomorrow. But I mean, I kind of look at the value package that we bring forward. And, I can tell you, I'm not sitting here looking for 38. If you're a district councillor and the district just voted in for the next 4 years, you could at the end of in 2030 be making, I don't know, 80 grand if we pump this up and with what the district's gonna pay. So, there's all of a sudden a lot of money coming forward. I don't even know how to assess the value package of that. I really don't. And I'm sort of thinking if I have to vote for this today, I'm a little torn. If I have to go back and tell people I just voted myself a 10% raise and we're looking for more.
So just for clarity, this just, if anybody's watching, it's not for ourselves. This would be for the next term of council.
No, I understand that.
Council.
Yeah,
Just
trust me.
wanted that to be
The
clear.
people out there will understand that loud and clear. So
Okay.
I'm just saying in that regard, and I'm only one, so, 9-1, but I think we need a little bit more discussion about this.
Okay.
Personally.
Okay, Councillor Roberts, Councillor Edwards, and then Councillor Kent.
Thank you. I too would like to see us think about this for a month. I was looking at this report in detail, and what I was considering is what we're paying the mayor. And I think that the mayor's job compared to a couple of others within our immediate comparative group is low. I'm thinking about the catch-up, and I'm proposing that for this one time only, we go to, and I'm just pulling this number out of the air, a 65% percentile consideration. So that's what I'd like to put forward to committee to consider a 65% percentile for this one time.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Edwards, Councillor Kent.
Yes. I asked this question to the district when we had that 10% raise, what it would cost on the budget. And there it was 0.008%, the actual raise. What is it now? Maybe our treasurer can tell me, what will this affect the budget by? You see, I don't like percentages, because if we give the mayor 10% at 53, where we're at 29 and you get 10%, it keeps going. And this is what's happened, is we just keep going. You shouldn't use percentages. If you say I'm getting right now that we're getting 26,779 per year, when you look at Seguin at 34,800 and that. So if they get a 10% raise and we get a 10% raise, that's what's happened. And that, tell us what the dollar value is and that. And I think in future, maybe when you're giving this to different councils, don't put the percentages. Saskatchewan, I believe, are not using percentages anymore because it's so out of skew.
Okay.
And I could support this today. We have a month to think about it. And I'll answer Councillor Bosworth's thing. How do we get this way? The first council I was on here, we had a mayor that said, we don't need a raise so we didn't get a percentage raise, and that's why we're behind. And it works that way. I'm not ashamed to take a raise because I think when you talk to the constituents, I'm around, I'm available.
Yep.
And that says for something.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. I see Councillor Kent and then Mayor Kelly, but yeah, Councillor Kent.
Thank you, Chair Mazan. I have I don't know, what I would call a moderately controversial item, which maybe it's for Jane and maybe it's for the just for the committee to think about. But if we go on the assumption that our community represents a broad base of people, some who are residents of Muskoka and some who are not, some who have winterized places, some who don't. And the goal is to have councillors that represent all aspects of that community. And if we say that's the presumption, you get somebody like me on the council or actually whoever else. You get somebody like me who actually does not have a residence in Muskoka that is not that's not winterized. So it's not an issue of attendance at meetings, because that's never been an issue. It's really an issue of mileage and the opportunity to attend meetings in person and the ability to find a place to stay. I personally believe if the goal...
So Councillor Kent.
It is comment time.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that you realize this is going to be part of the policy discussion. And so I just didn't want to confuse the rest of the group that currently we're just talking about the base pay. But I am going to let you be the first person to speak when we get to the second part of this, because both of those things are to be considered in the policy discussion. So that would be the per diem, the training, and I think you're introducing a new idea on the expense of doing this business. So I'm not trying to cut you
Yeah, I
off at
thought-
all.
Susan,
You will be
I
the
just-
first person to speak.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm happy to put it off. The only question is I thought we had started discussing benefits and other matters, and this, I viewed this as a benefit.
Yeah.
Do you have any
Yeah.
Mileage, okay. Yeah.
So we will be addressing that under the policy discussion. So
Okay, that's
you
fine.
will be the first up, though.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Mayor Kelly.
Thank you, and through you. I am ready to vote on this, and I first of all want to thank, I want to be formal here, Ms. Mizanski for the work that was done on this. I think it falls squarely within the mandate that was given. We identified the parameters. We, I think, talked about the comparators. We hold ourselves to a certain standard, and I'm comfortable that the results that came back reflect quite honestly what needs to be done to adjust the base pay for the next term of council. I get a little bit confused when I hear people talking about when are we going to emerge? When are we going to get higher? How are we going to make this more? None of us are here as captives. We all volunteered for this job under the current term 2 years ago. So clearly 2 years ago, the pay was an appropriate level for each of us to subscribe and buy into and take on this task. I honestly believe this pay works out if you calculate the hours that you're working and on standby below minimum wage. I absolutely convinced of that. But we signed on for it. It wasn't a factor 2 years ago when we decided to run or stand for acclamation for the position we're in right now. So to think or presume that we're waiting for some big jump, I don't understand that. We don't just represent seasonal residents whose big challenge is whether they're permanent, whether they're winterized or not. We represent the people that are living in cars. We represent the people that spend the summer under tarps. So it's a little presumptuous and a little precious for us to think that somehow we should be doing a whole lot different or a whole lot better than similar sized and similar circumstance municipalities are doing, and at the 65% level. I just don't understand where the rest of this discussion is coming from. If it's not enough pay, what are we doing here? This is a proposal that next term would be higher than it is this term. And I'm comfortable that the work was done to validate the understanding and the assumptions, to do appropriate comparators and pull us to a level of 65, I think is the number, I've forgotten now. 60. And P60. And I don't understand why we would be identifying that anything else needs to be done. It seems to me it's right within the mandate, right within the clear definition of what we were trying to achieve. And to talk about anything else, I just don't understand where it comes from.
Okay, Councillor Bosenworth.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You are reflecting very much my feelings. I am very uncomfortable having discussions about our self-aggrandizement, I think is the right word. What we heard from our consultant was all the councils their world is getting more complex. I don't think ours is particularly any more complex than anybody else. If you know anything about Township of Blue Mountain or Collingwood, the development pressures they're under are tremendous. And I know people in those regions and they work, and it's just, we've got complicated life, but they do too. So I think, we've got a target, we're paying fairly. If we truly do think our township is more complex, then we should just move our target up to 65, and it should be both for our staff and our council. But what I heard was that most councils target for 50 and are moving to 60. So we're at 60. I think we've been at 60 for a fair amount of time, certainly in the time I've been here. I'll just take the data. It's solid data. Let's just approve it and move on.
Okay. I am looking to see if there's any other hands up. I don't see any hands up. So I have read the question. So I will call the question. All those in favor? So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 7. So that does carry. Thank you. So now we can move on to the second part of the staff report, which there wasn't an official resolution, but as heard by Director Peroshi, and please help me guide me through this portion, we can certainly draft a resolution. And that is to amend the current policy that we have as it relates to per diems, training, and any other expenses. Is that correct? Okay, I've done a good job on that then. So I think if we could start then and have a discussion on the per diem concept. Do we have any, did you want to walk us through the report on this particular portion, or would you prefer? Thank you.
To you. I'm happy to walk through I do believe Jane went through it. The option for a per diem would be a payment for any additional special meetings. So anything that isn't already set. So the thought would be we set our council and right now council general committee and planning meetings, as well as 3 budget meetings each year. So it'd be anything on top of that would be subject to this per diem, as well as any addition. You could consider any additional meetings such as ad hoc meetings or working groups. So for example, right now we have a group looking at the zoning bylaw review. So that could be subject to that per diem. So those are all up for consideration based on what our consultant has given us. The recommendation was $55 for a half day or up to 4 hours, I believe, and $110 for a full day. But again, that's up for committee's discussion.
Okay, and I think it noted in your report, you had some more specific details of just variations of the approach that could be taken. Is that correct? And some of the financial implications. Is that correct? Under other compensation?
Yep.
Am I looking at that correctly? Okay. So committee, questions, comments? Councillor Zabit.
Thank you, through you. So to point number 4, it doesn't really say this, but am I to read or presume that the public, because a lot of these are, the Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw Committee is comprised of public members as well, everyone on that committee would be eligible for a per diem? That's my question.
For you?
Yes.
If you're just changing the council remuneration and expense policy, that would only apply to councillors. However, we could look at the other policy and apply that to staff as well. That's completely up to committee.
Well, if I might
Yes.
supplemental, I think it's vital that if there are counselors that are getting paid while you're sitting with public who aren't getting paid. I just think that doesn't have a good look to it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, are there any other kind of questions, thoughts, perspectives on the per diem? I will go I'm going to go Councillor Kent, and Councillor Kent, I did promise you that you could go first, but this is specific to the per diem. So I promise you, I did hear you. So I'll do Councillor Kent, you're on mute, and then Councillor Bosemarth.
Just a simple question for clarification from Ms. Peroshi. You said 3 budget meetings above, 3 special budget meetings were included in our base rate. The one I was questioning was like, for example, the meeting we have in 2 weeks, or on the 28th, 2 special meetings that day. Would that be outside of it, and you're proposing, or you're not proposing, we're discussing whether or not there would be a per diem for an extra meeting? I was just trying to find out what you said the specifics that were included were.
Okay.
Thank you. For you. You are correct. So typically we have 3 budget meetings. So that was the thought, is it's set every year. You could look at those being included as special meeting. But because they're kind of done every year, that was the thought behind not including those 3. But you are correct. If we scheduled a meeting, so this one coming up at the end of April would be, it's kind of 2 meetings together. So it'd be a full day. So all of the councillors would be subject to the $110 per diem if we looked at something like this. Yes.
Can I follow up?
Yes.
Quick, just a comment. I would support the fact that I think whatever the number is included in the base is outlined, and then in meetings above and beyond that should be on a per diem. So you know what you're signing up for. I'm committed to do this. And I just think that's the way business is done.
Thank you. I feel like I saw somebody else. Oh, it's Councillor Bosemarth.
Thank you. If I recall correctly, I think only 3 out of the 12 comparators had per diem. Am I correct on that, Jane?
Okay.
Yes, that's correct. For meetings of council, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I'm not very enthusiastic about this based on that.
Okay, thank you. Are there other hands up? Okay, Councillor Edwards.
I agree with Councillor Rosenworth and that we just give the next council a raise. They know what they're getting when they get into it, not per meeting. And that's so I wouldn't be supporting a per diem. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Nishikawa.
I just am asking you specifically for clarity. I had heard questions earlier and things, and I didn't hear an opportunity for those questions to be answered. And I'm just not sure when I can.
So which question specifically?
So there was one about the size of council.
Okay, yeah.
There was one on actually delaying a vote, putting something on, there was 2 councillors that brought up that they wanted to defer. And we never got that option. And so I'm just trying to put all those questions together and thinking when I will appropriately get to ask those questions, I suppose, or hear the answers for those questions. So.
Okay, so the size of council, I think, is outside of the scope of today's report. So I would probably be looking to staff to help guide me on that one, because I'm trying to help us make decisions on the information that's in front of us today. It's an important question. So now I'm looking to Director Peroshi to say, how could we address that specific question on the size of council?
Thank you, and through you. I don't have anything in the report, so this is kind of just going off the top of my head. That can be looked at any time. Council can look at it, with a few exceptions, in that it can't be done a certain amount of time prior to an election. And to be honest, I don't have that date off the top of my head, so I don't know if we're within that right now or not. I'd caution against it, only just knowing that we've entered into agreements for services for the upcoming election, and it's all been based on amount of people running and everything like that. So we're a little late into the term to be looking at it right now. In addition to that, another way that it's triggered is through the district. So because we have members of council who serve here at the lower tier and the upper tier, should the upper tier council at any time look at their number of councillors, that could have an effect on us as well. And I know that discussion has come up. So the district is also required to look at it next year or next term. They're required to look at their composition every other term, being next term. So I do believe that will be a discussion that will come to this table next term.
Okay, thank you. As far as the deferral, I'm noting that as the chair. And if I could follow up with you after on that, because I do want to talk to the clerk. If I inadvertently did something as the chair, then that's on me. So I apologize if that's the case. That was, I think, to do with the previous resolution that we've already read, and now we're talking about the policy. Specific though to the per diem, there's no motion necessarily on here. I'm trying to get a sense if there's an interest from the group on supporting adding a per diem. I'm getting a general sense that there isn't, but is a straw poll appropriate, Director Peroshi, in this particular case? I know you're looking for specific directions, so is a straw poll okay?
Thank you to you. Happy to do a straw poll that we'll use to craft a resolution to be passed in.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. So I just a quick show of hands for those who would support adding a per diem for extra meetings. Okay, I'm not seeing the general support for that idea. So yes, I did note a hand up, but I didn't see a general consensus that there's support on that topic. Thank you. Moving on to the second portion of the report, which is to do with the training schedule an opportunity. If you could just give us a quick reminder as to the topic we're talking about there, and then Councillor Bozemus, you can be first up. Oh,
Just clarification, is it training and conferences or just training?
training and conferences.
Thank
Thank you. So I'll let Director Peroshi.
Thank you. I will just do a quick synopsis of what's currently in our policy. So currently, a member of council is able to attend 3 national or provincial conferences per term. So this would be something like AMO, Roma, a conference such as that. The mayor is eligible for 2 municipal related conferences per year. And then all members of council are afforded 1 Ontario-based training session per term, and any FCM, AMT related expenses for councillors who are a member of those, which we haven't had in some time, but that does cover that. The recommendations provided by the consultant did recommend an increase to our budget and an increase to the allowable amount of conferences and training that committee members can go to, or that councillors can go to. And then it's really up to committee from there how many you would like to see and any guidelines that you would like to see. So if you'd like to put a limit on there, if you'd like to make the limit budget related, there were a couple of items noted in the report for recommendation with whichever option you choose. Just a few things to consider would be that registration is dependent on the remaining budget, that no more than 5 members of council may attend any one event, training, or conference to avoid any issues with quorum, and that priority will be given to any members of council who have not attended a conference, training, or have attended the least number of conferences and training. So if we're into our 3rd term, somebody's gone to 5 or 6 conferences, we have 7 people who want to go to a conference, the priority would go to the people who haven't had the opportunity to do so. So those were just a few things to consider when you're looking at what options you would like.
Thank you. Councillor Bozemus, I believe you had your hand up.
Yes, thank you. I am a very strong supporter of us changing our current policy. The limit of 3 per term, I find is just way too restrictive. I have personally been to 2 already, so I only have 1 to go. I find that what you learn about how municipal government works, you know, on every meeting you go, or at least of the 2 I've been to, have come back with one big, you know, holy smokes moment. And it's just, you know, I feel it makes me a much more valuable counselor. I haven't done any training. I should, but I think we should be allowed to go to a couple per year. And I also think we should have a per diem for attending conferences. We are reimbursed for, you know, at some limit, which, you know, frankly is pretty skinny. And both the conferences I've been to have resulted in personal out-of-pocket costs. I absolutely, you know, generally happy to pay, but I think just to be fair, I don't think it should be a financial burden on a counselor or to attendees. So I would support it with a per diem. Under the rules that you have, which is, you know, if there are some who haven't gone, then those who've already gone should wait until there's more capacity.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Kelly?
Thank you, and through you, and I would echo what Councillor Bozenworth said. I don't look at attendance at conferences as part of a compensation discussion, and I realize that it's probably not, but technically it would be my preference that it not even be part of this whole discussion. Yes, we need to have it. Yes, we need to have it in public and talk about it, but I don't think it should be conflated with part of a compensation package. It's training, it's exposure to more senior levels of government. It's an opportunity to delegate in many cases to cabinet ministers and other members. And, you know, much to my surprise, one who really does hate going to conferences, it's a very intense learning experience. And I think it is part of the training, quite frankly, for councillors, mayors, and senior staff.
Okay, Councillor Burry?
I'll jump on the bandwagon with the mayor and Councillor Bozenworth, but for the record, I am on the investment committee of the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, but I don't charge anything back to the township. So just for the record, I am on the investment committee for FCM. So we do have participation at there. So it hasn't been for a long while, just to be accurate. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Nishikawa.
Thank you. I really want to comment on that because I think we should recognize if that's in case, because often I think we don't have representation in Muskoka, period, like, other than John Klink was at one time. So I'm sorry. I agree with what the three speakers spoke before, and I would like to see it also taken out of the council remuneration thing. I always gain something great from attending, but in fact, I get a little bit. So I've also done awesome, like I've done the littler conferences, those types of things. Really, really great information that comes out of that, that reflects more to my rural kind of thoughts. But you can't go, you know, so, and it's really unfortunate. And it's the same thing. So for some of us, it's 3 or 4 days off work. That's just the reality. And so whether there's a per diem on top of that, not only just your expenses to go it, but also recognition that you should get a, you know, a
Okay.
buck a day or something like that, but you know, whatever the amount is.
Okay, thank you. So I'm hearing from a good portion of the group right now, there's a general consensus that there's support to, I will call it, increase not only the dollar amount, but the flexibility within the current policy to allow for more participation, because that is an area that we seem to be below in. Staff have outlined options. I'm going to ask staff, do you need some specific questions and direction from us so you can add this to policy to then bring back to us to have a second discussion on?
Thank you. I appreciate that. I will be coming over to craft a resolution in a moment, but I would be looking for, I think, 3 things. One would
Okay.
be if you want to limit the number of conferences per year or per term, or if you want to leave that unlimited. Then looking at the training, the training right now is limited to 1, and I this is just my perception that I believe that was done in the past, prior to having opportunities to do things over Zoom or some of the smaller trainings that have happened in our area with a very nominal fee. So just looking to see if you'd like to increase that or keep it unlimited. And then also on the per diem, if there was going to be a per diem, would you like to see a similar amount as was discussed previously? So something like $55 for half a day and $110 for a full day, or did you have another amount in mind? So I'm really looking for kind of numbers for those 3 areas.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Nishikawa, Councillor Edwards.
Everything you said. Sorry, the 110, I believe that was the number, and per the per day. And sorry, what was your other one that you?
Thank you, through you, whether you wanted unlimited or a specified number of conferences per year or per term, and same for the trainings, if you wanted it unlimited or if you want to specify.
Unlimited.
Okay.
And I challenge anybody to jump on board and take it, whatever they could, but it would be very limited anyhow. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
And through you, just to clarify on that, and I believe I heard Councillor Bosimer support this, all of that would be under the caveat of the kind of limitations that I had noted earlier.
Right.
So it would all be subject to budget and allowable
Correct.
people to attend. Okay.
Okay, thank you. So Councillor Edwards.
Yes, when you were talking per diem, I think Jane can help out. I think for conferences, that wasn't between $130, $150 a day because you're leaving on her actual report. Is that right?
Yes, the comparators were far more specific when it came to conferences. It was in that range of 130 to 150. Looking beyond the comparator group, and that's why I think I was tending towards the 150, is that tends to be what we do see across the broader group of municipalities.
And that's secondary.
Mhm.
Does that include meals, Pat? Because right now, if we go somewhere, we can get like a charge for meals.
No, this is in addition to the meals. So you get your regular, you get your conference fees paid for, the meals and accommodations are paid for through expenses. And then the per diem is in addition to this to compensate you for any loss of income or compensate you for the time because it's over and above your council meetings.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments, Councillor Bosworth?
Keeping in line with, being in line with the comparables, I don't think the per diem should be 110. I think it should be a lot closer to 150.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other, knowing council that this is just to update a policy that next month or whenever it does come back, we'll have another set of eyes on this and we'll understand what that actually the total package looks like, I believe, correct? Just nod heads, okay. Any other questions or comments on the training portion? Okay, so I just would, a quick show of hands for those at straw poll that are supportive of the direction that we're giving staff on the training and conference portion of those three things. Quick show of hands, are we supportive of this direction given? Okay, thank you. And now, Councillor Kent. I promised you to go first, and here I am letting you go last. There was two comments I think that you have brought up as it related to mileage, I believe, and accommodation.
Yeah, and thank you. It just really for discussion. I do support the fact that the council should represent the community. And on the margin, you got some islanders and people who don't live in Muskoka up there. That is part of the community, and they're a contributor to the tax base. So let's say I represent that community as well as everybody else. But that's the people who voted for me to get into council. So I would suggest that it's very difficult. I know that they've been very accommodating with Zoom and stuff, but my intention would be to attend in person as much as possible. But this week was an example where I did have a nice member of council who offered to put me up, but I tried 3 friends who were not available. I don't really want to be spending $150 a night to come up to Muskoka. And I really feel that if the goal is to get people to attend in person, and I think it goes with the potential policy change that you might make for next council about limiting or changing some Zoom rules, I think you really have to think seriously about, well, if that's the case, then you got to make it more attractive and easy to have people come to Muskoka. I wouldn't suggest that you need to compensate somebody like me for 2 nights of accommodation, but I know that Councillor Zavitz did negotiate a rate with a local hotel, nothing fancy, and it was a very reasonable rate. And I mean, I would drive up on a Wednesday morning, I'd stay 1 night and go back on the Thursday. So we're talking about somebody like me, an out-of-towner, apart from in the summer months, would, request that the hotel accommodations be paid for 1 night. And, my preference would be to stay with a friend, but it can't always accommodate that. And I mean, my cottage last year was open in April. It ain't opening until the middle of May this year. Okay, so I'm limited to some extent on how much I choose to, I just think it's something we should consider. The other component of that is mileage. I get mileage from Footsbay to the center, which is 28 kilometers, but you have people who don't. You want us to attend meetings, you might as well compensate me for the appropriate mileage from my house to Muskoka and back, particularly in the winter months when you're in your car a long time. So my 2 suggestions are, I think that's something that we should be thinking about because I think it supports the concept of attendance in person. I don't think it becomes mandatory, but it supports it. And I think it's something you need to think about as we consider. And I know that was brought up at one point, potentially any changes to next terms of council for Zoom and what's mandatory and what's not going to be mandatory, because that's something that needs to be established before you have an election. So people who are signing up know what they're getting into. And I would say one support would be some hotel accommodations for 1 night minimum and mileage for the times that you drive up from the city.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'm going to open up. Are there any comments from committee? Councillor Bosworth.
Thank you. I wholeheartedly agree with Councillor Moyer-Kent. I am one of those people yeah, I don't think about it very often, but if I add it up, it's a pretty significant financial burden to get up here for 2 or 3 nights. I have to do it for basically November, December, January, February, and March. I just cannot get to my island, or it's, it's just, you don't have, there's no boats. It would be more fair, and the seasonal voters are a fairly significant portion of our constituents. And it's important that we have proper representation. So I think, I would feel better. It wouldn't stop me from running, but I think it's just being more fair and considerate of the makeup of our township.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? Councillor Rosenworth.
Sorry, if I can just add, supplement a point on that. And we have 30% of our council in that position in this council.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Roberts.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On this subject, I know that we start all the general finance meetings commenting that we continue to be in a hybrid situation. When I recall the actual policy, we will always be in a hybrid position until a future council or this council changes it. So I look at the industry, the worldwide industry, and they're not they're holding meetings daily, and it's in a hybrid situation. So there is extreme value of being in the room, but we got to remember that for future councillors, there is that option of the hybrid, and I do support the 30% or more that represent a significant amount of the constituents that are not here full time, and they're here. I don't think any of them miss any meetings. So they're just my thoughts on it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Nishikawa.
Is this a question, or is this like, do we have to just stick to questions?
No,
So my comment is, we are counselors for everyone. We are counselors for everyone. We're not just island counselors. So I will say that being in the community a little more often is very helpful to the community. It's part of the growing of a community. It's part of, and sometimes I'm just saying from a hall board perspective, often it is the counselor that leads to the next level of engaging with people. Look what this community center is doing. Would you like to get more involved? That type of thing. So it's more being part of the community as well. I just want to point that out, that we're not just talking about council meetings.
Thank you. Councillor Zavitz.
Yeah, well, I'm on the other side of it. So, and I'm in the same ward. So, I think that you said everyone respectfully through the chair, but it isn't everyone. And we all have a different place where we live in Muskoka and pay taxes in Muskoka. And so, those of us who can't access our property in the wintertime with, 8 feet of snow, I spent a lot of money to have access to my place in the wintertime and still couldn't. So anyway, the point being is there needs to be a consideration. If we're, as a council, allowed to have a hybrid format, you just got to be sensitive to this reality. The mayor lives across the street. So he is understanding. I know he is. And I'm not sending you out, but it just shows you, I live 200 kilometers away and came up yesterday and I'm at my home now that I'm able to access for the next 7 months. But there's a hill like this, so you can't use it in the wintertime. You simply can't. And it's got a generator and everything else. So my point is, I'm ready to go, but I can't. And so I think there should be a sensitivity to, at minimum, some sense of possibly one night of accommodation that Wednesday night because we don't have any committees to come up with. And, the rest of it is, I'm part of the community, as we all are. So
Okay, thank you. Mayor Kelly?
Thank you, and through you. I have two comments. Number one, I've heard at least two councillors suggest, I think they suggested that somehow seasonal residents can only be well represented by seasonal residents. I take offense to that, frankly. But that having been said, the reality is we want to open this tent to be as big as possible and attract as many good people to run and hopefully succeed in their quest to be a councillor and participate. I think consideration should be given to off-season accommodation, and I'm comfortable with that. And I think putting appropriate limitation in terms of per night accommodation and 1 night per month is probably appropriate. I don't have a couple, whatever, 1 night. I think it's 1 night a month is really all I'm hearing. I don't have a problem with that. I also think that there are some permanent residents on this council who do a bang up job representing the seasonal residents as well.
And conversely, some seasonal residents who do a bang up job of representing the year round. We're all one community here. So I needed to say that. There's two parts to this. Okay, Councillor Burry.
Thank you. I would support 1 night a month because I will speak to the benefit of having people around the table. Hybrid is fantastic, but it's nowhere near as good as having everybody around the table. The nuance, the body language, the ability to have conversations and make sure that we're actually saying the right things, because sometimes it doesn't always appear as when things are said in the intent. So anything we can do to encourage having people around the table is money well spent, and in the scheme of things, a rounding error.
Okay, thank you. So I think that there was there was two parts to Councillor Kent's comments. One was on the overnight accommodation. So I just want to get a quick show of hands for those who would support having this added to the policy, knowing that it's going to come back to us for further discussion. Okay, you have a question first? Okay, Councillor Nishikawa.
So where I'm going at, and it's stuck in my mind, what the policy at district, which is very different than what we have. And so what I'm hearing, like, I think there has to be a limit though of how many, like 7 months, 8 months. I'm trying to understand how many Zoom meetings will people be doing and how many, well, so again, I'm trying to ask, is there going to be a limitation? If we're just saying, for half the year that we're paying for the accommodation, but if somebody was to say then they couldn't have access in August, but they used up their 6 months earlier or something like that. I'm just trying to understand how many, what can the public expect?
Okay, so let me ask the staff, do you need to have a specific number at this point for consideration? And or could you come back with the policy with some thoughts around it that we could discuss when the policy comes back?
Thank you to you. I do see the policy coming back in a red line version with some changes. However, staff can kind of put their mind to, and we can look around and see if there's any other policies that are currently in place that we could mirror, as well as looking at financially what would make sense and all of that. So what we can do is staff can take that based on what I'm hearing is up to 1 night per month. We can look at how many months per year, and we can bring back what that would look like in terms of financial implication as well.
Okay, thank you. So Councillor Edwards?
Yeah, I would like a limit on that too, because and that staying it, and that somebody could pick the most expensive place around,
Right,
or something like that. There should be some sort of a limit on that.
Yeah.
As well.
So I think staff will come back to us with some suggestions. The second part to Councillor Kent's comments was around the mileage. Is it reflecting the true nature of the job, and how do we approach this? So Mayor Kelly.
And I have a question, thank you, rather than a comment, but through you. When you say, does the mileage represent, are we talking about the total mileage or the per kilometer reimbursement? Because I thought that was pretty much prescribed by CRA, isn't it?
Yeah, sorry. I think Councillor Kent had brought up that it's not a true reflection of the number of kilometers, not how much she's being compensated for, but the true number of kilometers for the drive to Muskoka. So,
Don't we track? I don't know, because I don't.
so you live across the street, so
I
let me
know,
help you
that's
here.
why I'm asking.
So-
Asking a question.
Okay, so I think myself this example, because I think Councillor Kent has brought this forward, which is at my Muskoka home. There's the rate that you get paid between your Muskoka home and the office, and that's what we get paid for, no matter where we live. But for those who don't live at their Muskoka home all the time and are having to commute from a much further distance, there's a real cost to that as well. So I think that, I think that's reflecting what you're bringing up, Councillor Kent, is that correct?
If I can add one thing, I support, obviously, we should limit the number of months you can get a hotel. We should support the number of times you drive up to Muskoka and get compensated for it. But it's just trying to facilitate attendance. Let's make it a little more reasonable during the winter months for the people who are permanent residences are not in Muskoka.
So I think it's the distance and the number of kilometers that we're talking about here, and just acknowledging the fact that it changes, that it's not always, I think.
Yeah, one
Councillor
is
Kent's-
20, one is 17 kilometers and one is 200 and something kilometers. So
That's what,
yeah. That's all.
so,
Limitations
Councillor-
are fine, and I'd assume the staff would come back with some suggestions that limited the months and the times of year that it's appropriate.
okay, Councillor Edwards?
Thank you. To be a counselor, you have to have a Muskoka address, do you not?
For you, yes, you have to have a Muskoka Lake address.
So that's where the mileage be coming from, as far as I'm concerned. And that people knew as we knew what the salary was when they took the job. And that if you're talking 200 kilometers at 66 cents a kilometer, that's what, $122 plus a hotel bill. And that, I think it's, you know, when people take it, they consume for 6 months.
Thank you. Any other thoughts on the mileage? Because I will need to do a straw poll in a moment, so we can give direction to staff. Is there an interest in having staff come back with some options on increasing or including, thank you, mileage increases? Okay, for those in favor, please put up your hand. Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Councillor Zavitz, did you have your hand up? I apologize. Can I just ask one more time for the straw poll? For those in favor of staff coming back with some options that would look at increasing mileage for those attending from a further distance. Okay, hands up. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so that does not pass. Is that correct? I did not put my hand up. Okay. Councillor Roberts, did you have a question? Or was your hand up?
Just before I would call the vote, I had a comment, but we'll just leave it.
That wasn't a vote, it was just a straw poll. So,
I'm just thinking if we did establish a mileage, it could be a set mileage for anyone outside of Muskoka. Not if you're living in Thunder Bay or living in Toronto, you would get the same kilometer allocation. That was the only comment I had.
okay, thank you. So Councillor Bosemuth, then I would like.
Just a question. I was watching Councillor Roberts. Did you count?
I did. Thank you. So again, staff is going to go away and they're going to draft a policy. I think this is the start of a conversation and trying to understand the reality of a shifting composition of and demographic, honestly, around the council table, shifting technology. We've just addressed that through the training. Like the conditions of how we are operating, conducting business continues to evolve and change. So I think, you know, the policy is a bit fluid, and I hope that through this you've had some further direction. Do you need anything else from us at this point?
If there's nothing else to include, I'll just need a few moments to.
Yes.
craft the
And then
resolution.
we'll take our break while you're doing that. But what I would like to know is there any other comments or questions? And yep, Councillor Roberts.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you, through my peers. Like you, from time to time, all councillors struggle with basic technology problems related to applications or devices they're using to complete their job. I asked if council would consider adding to the technology allowance IT support.
Okay. Okay, so IT support in the context of in-house support, just for
Yes.
clarity.
Yes.
Okay. I don't think that's what Councillor Roberts, are you looking for a stipend or are you looking for just internal access to support?
Internal access to support. Thank you.
Okay. So, thank you, Director Proshi.
Thank you. I just want to note that currently, the way that our policies are written is that each member of council is able to obtain whatever device they would like. So we don't have any restrictions on what type of device that you get. If we're looking at bringing that in-house, I'd have to look to the director and potentially we'd have to speak with our IT provider of whether that would limit the type of devices that you would be able to utilize, in that I don't think we can expect our IT provider to be experts in every single type of device. So that would be the only thing I would say. And I think that's why it was included in the amount that was provided to council, was that it was for devices and IT support, because there was an appetite at the time to be able to get any type of device. So I just want to note that if that's something that we're looking at is bringing in-house, what you might see as a result of that is a restriction in the what type of device you can have. Thank you.
Okay. We've had a long meeting so far without a break, and I'm mindful of that, but I do want to make sure that I acknowledged Councillor Roberts' comments here. So are there any other comments or questions or? Okay, thank you,
So
Director
just through
Donaldson.
you, Chair, just with respect to being able to service individual machines and to Director Proshi's comment about types of machines, the other issue is every township device has software deployed to it so that they can be accessed and worked on remotely by support. So that could be an issue with a personal machine versus a corporate machine. So I just want to,
Okay.
there's an RMM application that gets deployed. So I just want to make sure that we consider that in whatever we end up bringing back as what is possible versus what is preferred.
Okay, thank you, Director Peroshi, and then Councillor Murray.
Thank you. And sorry, just to make sure that you have all the information in front of you. Another item to consider is if we were standardizing the type of devices that you have and they were corporate devices and we had access to the records, that has ramifications in terms of freedom of information and the type of documents that then the township has care and control of. So it's just something else for committee to be aware of.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Murray.
Thank you. I've got a fair bit of experience in this particular space, including sitting on a board that needs to be SOC 2 compliant. And the only way that we could get around it as directors of the corporation was to have machines owned by the corporation deployed. And that is the only purpose that I use for that machine. If we're headed down this path, the only way it's going to be manageable for the corporation of the township of Muskoka Lakes is to buy basic laptops and have everything deployed and have IT make that, so that, in other words, you're carrying around a machine that is solely for the purpose of council and council related business. Anything else is going to run into significant problems in my professional experience. Either you make a decision that we all head in that direction, take away the stipend and go with deployed laptops, or it just won't work if you're going to try and get into the SOC 2 compliance space or any of the other things that the township is going to be forced into at some point.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Nishikawa.
Thank you. Mostly I'm suggesting that staff doesn't have to put too much time into this, because we've done this over the years And in fact, when we were with the district, our IT was with district, we had the option of getting their computers. Super heavy, just saying, but different, but others prefer using a Mac to a PC, those types of things. And that was also very, very important. And so I don't think that we're gonna,
Okay,
it's just my suggestion. I don't think that we need to go in that direction.
okay, thank you. Councillor Bozenworth, last one, and then I'm gonna do this. quick
I'd like to
roll.
wrap this up by
Yeah.
saying, I don't think we should be talking about this anymore. We were just told that our annual stipend includes whatever help you need
Yeah.
at home. Frankly, you know, we're getting a bunch of money. I don't really spend it all, but that's fine. And I think we just leave it there.
Okay,
Everybody seems to be working very well in this term and the last term without having any more consideration for this. So
okay, this has
Thank
been a
you.
marathon without a break. So thank you for that. Councillor Roberts, we will be moving on now to the break. Director Proshi will craft up a resolution on the policy, and then we will be moving on our agenda. So if I could ask everybody to be back here at 11:05, that gives us 15 minutes, 14 minutes for a break, and then we have to power through the rest of the agenda. Thank you. Welcome back. I think I see everybody is almost here. Thank you. Committee, we had a really good discussion this morning. We knew that this was a big agenda today. We knew that we have a lot on it, and we always know that that particular topic sparks a lot of good dialogue. So I appreciate everybody's patience and participation in such a respectful manner. I do have a resolution that has been drafted by our clerk, so I will read this to see if it reflects the discussion we've just had on the policy portion of that discussion. Moved by Councillor Bosemorth, seconded by Councillor Burry. Be it resolved that staff be directed to bring back amendments on the council remuneration and expense policy C-GG-11 for further review, including A, updating the current training and conference restrictions to provide a greater number of events per member to include 1, unlimited national provincial conferences per term, 2, unlimited local-based or online training sessions per term, 3, registrations dependent on remaining budget available, 4, restriction on no more than 5 members of council attending any one event training conference, 5, priority to members of council who have not attended a conference or training or who have attended the least number of conferences training within the term. B, per diem of $150 per day for attendance at conferences or in-person training. And C, coverage of overnight accommodation to attend council or committee meetings with limits on cost and number of nights per month per year. So are there any comments or questions? Councillor Nishikawa.
There's a couple. I would have liked some of those almost in 2 different resolutions, but the national conferences there's still rules around that. Like it was, yes, I wanted to say that. Ontario, but we're not opening up to, because we did have a council that went to New York, for instance. So I'm just saying.
Okay, Director Proshi.
Thank you through you. Yes, it's restricted to if one of the conferences is national but held within Ontario, then it would be eligible, but not if it was outside of Ontario.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Kelly.
Thank you. And through you, quick question. Are these matters, or I guess will these matters be effective immediately or effective at the beginning of the next term?
Okay, thank you. Director Proshi.
Thank you. Through you. The original resolution that was passed was for the bylaw, and that bylaw for policy says that it comes into force and effect with the next term of council. This is simply a policy change, so it could come into effect as soon as council approves it.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kent, Councillor Bosemorth, Councillor Nishikawa.
Thank you. Just a quick question. I would have thought from a budgeting standpoint, we would need to have a maximum number. I mean, it may not be as restrictive as it is now, but having an unlimited number to me, we're not talking about a ton of money, but that's not the way we budget. And I just don't think that. I think it should have some number. Maybe it's twice as many as we get now, but something that's a workable number rather than unlimited. That's just for consideration when you bring the proposal back.
Yep. Director Proshi.
Thank you. Through you. We did hear from committee earlier today that they'd like to see unlimited. The resolution does specify that it is budget dependent. So if the budget did not allow for it, then we would notify the councillor and we'd essentially have run out of money for that year. The other thing that we see doing, now this is more procedurally, so we wouldn't have this in the policy, is the clerk's office would reach out in the year prior, so August, September of the year prior, to gain some knowledge on what conferences each councillor may like to attend the next year. And that would help us formulate the budget, because especially the next couple of years, I do anticipate there would be some changes and it'd be quite difficult to come up with a new number. We will use the numbers that were provided by the consultant, and we'll bring that back in the next report on what you can anticipate as a kind of a base change in terms of budget. But we'll also add that as an added step, that the clerk's office would reach out and gain some information as to who would like to attend what, so that we can have the most accurate budget possible.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Bosemorth.
Thank you. Could you just read the last point? I was listening but did not quite catch it.
Sure. C, coverage of overnight accommodation to attend council committee meetings with limits on cost and number of nights per month per year. Okay, Councillor Nishikawa?
Thank you. I'm concerned that there's items in there that I would be approving and items that I do not want to see move forward. And I'm wondering if they should be split out.
So I think this is just to direct staff to come back with a policy, and that would give us an opportunity, is that correct? To review that policy again at that point?
So why is there a vote? I don't.
Director Proshi?
Thank you through. This is just to direct staff to come back with these changes and to bring back the budget implications of these changes, which is why there's more detail. We just want to make sure that we have the detail in order to bring back the budget implications as well. And to make sure we're not making a whole bunch of changes that you don't want to see, but it will certainly come back as a red line version to committee here for further discussion.
Okay, I've read the resolution. I will now call the question. All those in favor? Okay, thank you. That carries. All those opposed? Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. Moving on to item 7A. Ms. Story, welcome to the podium.
Thank you, Chair Mizan, and good morning, committee. The first report before you is regarding a license agreement application that has been received from the Port Carling Golf and Country Club, looking to recognize and permit the replacement of existing irrigation pipes to be buried within a portion of Township Road Allowance being Donald Drive. Staff have reviewed the application and are recommending approval, subject to the conditions noted in the staff report. I will note that the golf club's agents are in attendance this morning and are available in the event committee has any questions. And with that said, I will turn it back to the chair.
Thank you, committee. Do we have any questions? Councillor Nishikawa? No.
I'm just wondering if we could hear from Public Works. Because my concern is we've turned these types of applications down in the past, and I'm not sure why we are allowing this to continue.
Okay, so your question to Public Works is?
I see Tim.
Okay, who? Nick? Tim? Okay.
Yes, and through you, I can kind of provide a quick overview of how this application was considered in respect to comparing to other previous applications. So this application is the one consideration is an existing condition. So there are currently already irrigation lines under the road. By having an opportunity, the golf course has come to the township identifying that there's been a change where they previously drew water from the lake that is on the one side of Donald Drive. They had their permit to take water revoked, and they now no longer have a way to water that entire area without having this crossing still in place. They have identified that they could connect to the existing older pipe that's already in place. And in discussions on that as a group within the department, having the opportunity to put in a new pipe that's constructed in accordance with township standards, and where we actually have prescribed how it's done versus just an old pipe that's existing. They connect to that. They have issues with it. That was part of the reasoning for supporting the proposal.
Thank you. Any other questions for staff or for the applicant? Okay, seeing none, it's been suggested to me by our clerk that this is a fairly lengthy resolution and it is within our agenda. So with the committee's permission, I could not read this. Is that correct? Is that how I approach this? And just call the question, or then I can ask if there's any discussion. Okay, so with committee's permission, I don't need to read this resolution. Everybody's seen it in the package. Just a quick show of hands. That's okay. Thank you. Okay, so the resolution, to say it? No? But I haven't had to do this before. So what do I do? Oh, any other comments? Okay, seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Thank you. You're fine now. Thank you. You're up again.
I am.
Terry.
Thank you,
Okay,
Chair.
AP.
So the second report before you is regarding a new acquisition and disposition of real property policy. Staff, together with the township solicitor, have created this new policy in order to facilitate the acquisition and disposition of real property, set out principles and procedures respecting the acquiring and disposing of lands, and ensure that these interests support council-approved projects, initiatives, and policies while a consistent and equitable process is followed. Key highlights of this policy are included in the staff report, and with that said, I will turn it back to the chair.
Thank you very much. Committee, this is questions, and then I will read the resolution. Councillor Zavitz.
Thank you, and through you. So as I read next steps, it reads that this report on an annual basis would come forward from staff identifying a handful of properties. It says recommended to be declared as surplus lands. We have been for quite a number of years, and I don't know if it's a work in progress, but a glossary, if you will, of all of the properties that the township owns in terms of identified as and their location. And I'm wondering how the township ciphers or decides what goes on this report versus all of the other property the township currently owns. This goes back years. Thank you. Is that clear enough?
Yeah.
The story.
Through you, Chair, to Councillor Zavitz. So we are looking at creating a surplus land registry. And what that will entail is staff, probably on an annual basis, will go through properties that the township owns. And based on views from each department, craft up a couple pieces of property and bring that forward to council and recommend that they be declared as surplus lands. And that will be separate from, I think you're asking about sort of a spreadsheet of all the properties that the township owns. We could probably look at making something like that available so the public is aware of what exactly and where the township owns property, probably through GeoHub in the district. It might be available already right now. I'm not 100% sure, but that's sort of what we're thinking in terms of the surplus land registry. It will be updated and maintained on the website. And that's sort of how we see that facilitating.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Mayor Kelly?
Thank you, and through you. I just looked at two sections that seem to be contradictory with each other a little bit. The first one is in the definition of fiscal accountability, and there's a list of 3 categories, if you will, which will qualify a property for acquisition. Yeah, for acquisition, maintained or operated with the tax-supported budget, fulfills a needed function or purpose, or C, has been identified as having strategic value. When you turn to paragraph 3, acquisition, it seems to be a little more restrictive as to what you can acquire. Restricted to those which are required for municipal purposes that support council and approved infrastructure. That's not exactly what the first definition says. And I don't care which one is right. I just think that they're not the same.
Okay.
Yeah, we can certainly look into that.
Sorry, yes, if you could clarify the numbers for staff.
All right, it's 2.1 A, B, and C is the sort of pre-qualification for acquisition. And then paragraph 3 itself kind of repeats it restricts the acquisitions to certain characteristics that aren't the same as the ones that are limited in the first set.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any other questions for staff? I will read the question. Moved by Councillor Nishikawa, seconded by Councillor Roberts. Be it resolved that the acquisition and disposition of real property policy C-LS-01 attached as Appendix 1 to report number LS-2025-012 be adopted, and that the sale and other disposition of land policy C-LS-01 and land donations policy C-CAO-16 be repealed. Are there any comments? Discussion, Councillor Roberts.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd be in support of a registry that is all inclusive of all properties available. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other comments or discussion points? Okay, seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? That carries. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Story. Two great reports, and I just want to comment that I know that was a pretty long report with a lot of details in it, and just want to thank you on behalf of the council. Yeah, or committee. I guess I can't really say that, but thank you on behalf of me. Okay. 8C.
Still on. Good morning, Chair Mazan and members of committee. This report provides an update on the new township website. One of the priority actions identified in the communication strategy that was approved late last year was the development of a new website. Sorry. Through the communication strategy process, we received feedback about the current website from both council and the community. On top of the feedback received in that process, we are also taking the ongoing feedback provided into consideration as we plan for the new website. As noted in the report, our current site is with eSolutions. eSolutions let us know late last year that our current website will become obsolete and we would need to transition to GHD by the end of 2026 at the latest. With that, this also made it an optimal time to begin work on the new township website. Appendix 1 in the report includes a link to the theme and design of the new website. In addition to the new look and layout, we are working to eliminate duplicate information and create a more user-friendly experience through the process. Prior to go live, we intend on circulating a draft of the site to both council and staff with an opportunity to provide feedback. We will then do a soft launch of the site for a few weeks and go live at the end of June. With that, I turn it back to you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Committee, this is a for information only report, so there isn't a resolution. So if there's questions or comments for communication, Councillor Bozemer.
Thank you. Can you tell me about the search capabilities?
Thank you.
Yeah, so it'll be using through you. Sorry. It will be using the same. We use a search engine called Cluedo with our current website, and the plan right now is to go forward with the same search engine.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments? Seeing that, oh, Councillor Roberts.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The current search engine that I've used many times it doesn't present it. There's a lot of information over the years that comes up. And I'm wondering if maybe it's possible to refine that. Is there options I'm not using?
Through you. So with the new site, a lot of the old information that's been on there for a long time that you would be seeing when you search, say, dark sky, for example, it has a big history, but a lot of that history is going to be eliminated as we streamline the information to make it a little bit more user-friendly and easier to access. So all of those significant number of items that you're seeing right now will be eliminated with the search of the new site.
Thank you.
So the focus is to make this more user-friendly.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. Okay, are there any other comments? Seeing none, and again, thank you.
Thank you.
On behalf of all of us. Thank you for your work on that particular initiative. That one's a tough one. Director Don, no. Ms. Jeffries, welcome to the podium.
Good morning, Chair Mizan Committee. This report provides an overview of the development charge reserve activity that occurred in 2024. I won't go into too much detail because it's been exposed to the development charges with the background study and the new bylaw that occurred in 2024.
With this report, the table 1 shows the activity per service category, and it's by per service category for the 2019 bylaw for the time it was in effect and the 2024 bylaw after that was in effect. And table 2 gives detail of the projects that utilize the development charges. And if you're looking for information on the development charge, it is in the annual financial statements in the note that relates to deferred revenue. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to try and answer them.
Okay, thank you. This is also for information only, so questions or comments? Councillor Bozemer?
Yes, and through you, how are the transfers in allocated between library, fire, parks, et cetera? I was just curious about that, because I think these are development charge that comes from people who are doing development. And I was just wondering how you managed to allocate that in.
Through you, part of the bylaw shows an allocation of how much is per different category, library, roads, etc. And it's also based on by type of development. So whether it's residential, whether it's commercial, all of those have different rates, and it's one of the appendix of the bylaw.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, thank you very much for another great report. Director Donaldson.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So I invited Brad Thompson to join us. So he's our IT coordinator. I think many of you have had the opportunity to meet Brad, but he's the guy in charge of keeping all of our systems up and running. He's been doing a great job. He's just coming up on a year here. The report before you is for appointment of a continuation of our existing IT service provider. So we went to RFP about 3 years ago. We issued a contract to Helix, who was then subsequently acquired by Lake Country Office Solutions. And our help desk services were subcontracted to an organization called Resolve Solutions out of Guelph. So they've really been the help desk we've been using for the last 3 years. Lake Country has pivoted their business model with respect to IT support, and they've withdrawn their desire to want to continue with us, but they have encouraged, and we've certainly had a good business relationship and a good experience with Resolve. And so we did have a 2-year renewal option in our contract with Lake Country, but because Lake Country is not going to be the continuing vendor, I thought it was prudent to bring this forward to committee to get ratification to continue with our relationship with Resolve going forward for the next couple of years.
Thank you. Committee, this does have a resolution, so if there are any questions. Seeing any, I will read the resolution. Moved by Councillor Burry, seconded by Councillor Zavitz. Be it resolved that staff be authorized to award a contract of service as a non-competitive purchase under Schedule B, Section 4.6 of the Township of Muskoka Lakes Procurement Bylaw 2004-161, and that a contract to the satisfaction of the Director of Financial Services for Information Technology Managed Services be entered into with Resolve IT Solutions for a term expiring June 30th, 2026, and that the Director of Financial Services be authorized to sign and to execute the necessary documents to proceed with this contract. Committee, are there any questions or comments, discussion points?
Chair?
Yes.
Sorry, I think that may have been an oversight in the resolution on our behalf. That should be 2027. So it'd be for 2 years to 2027.
Okay.
Apologies for that.
Result to term expiring, right, 2027? Okay, thank you. Okay, I've read that question. All those in favor? That carries. Thank you. Thank you, Director Donaldson. Thank you to your team. Brad.
This one's gonna be a while.
These moments.
Right.
Yes, reserve policy.
Reserve policy, thank you. So committee has made multiple requests of staff to prepare an updated reserve policy intended to provide guidance to achieve appropriate reserve fund balances and determine the level of contributions to the reserve funds required as part of the budget process. Staff had deferred presenting an updated policy up till now in order to gather more information regarding future capital spending so that any policy to be contemplated by committee could also include an impact analysis. While the work continues to build and refine our long-term capital outlook, staff felt it appropriate to bring forward at this time a conceptual framework on what a policy would include and a preliminary impact assessment based on the information currently available. There are different models and assumptions that can be used in developing such a policy. What's being tabled at this time is one that is rooted in what we know today while acknowledging what we don't yet know, and most importantly, one that's designed to be simple, clear, and practical. This policy is based on a few key principles. One is building the reserves and the reserve funds based on a gradual and predictable nature based on future needs. It's also setting annual contributions based on identified future replacement and life cycle costs of our assets, and ensuring that it's flexible enough to evolve as more information becomes available. So here at a high level is how this policy actually works. So contributions to the reserve fund will begin in equal installments 10 years in advance of when the money would be needed. The amount of money required from the tax levy would exclude grants, assets from the, proceeds from the sale of assets or any debt that we would take on. Interest would be earned over the 10-year period leading up to the expected year of expenditure, and using this time to allow the funds that is set aside to grow and reduce the burden on future budgets. There is no target for the reserve fund balance. The amount in the reserve fund would simply be the accumulation of the contributions as determined by the formula to ensure that the money is available when needed. In any given year, the accumulated reserve balance would be approximately 90% of what's required in the following year, 80% of what's required for the year following that, 70% of the year following that, and so on, down to 10% of the 10th year out. Of course, with any type of modeling, there are assumptions that present risks. If the actual investment returns are lower than expected, the fund may fall short of what is required. Conversely, if returns are higher, the municipality would have over-contributed and would tie up funds unnecessarily. One-time grants have not been included in the example in Chart 2, but successful applications would reduce the reliance on the tax base in the future. What if that replacement date comes sooner than planned, or if a critical failure happens unexpectedly? That would not be built into those contributions that were made based on the projected timeline. Forecasting would be subject to annual changes in costs, as we've seen with inflation changes over the past number of years. Timing and priorities can change, and some projects may not even yet be foreseeable, which would require contributions adjustments and may not permit 10 years to save. And my example with that would be of the Medora Street wall we saw in the last couple of years. And the implementation of a policy such as this, based on this framework, would only look forward. And that means we have a funding gap in our current reserve balance that would have to be addressed, either through additional contributions or by taking on debt in the short term. So the decisions made by council are dependent upon good forecasting, prudent assumptions, and active management. And being clear about these risks helps set realistic expectations and shows the public that council is taking a thoughtful, responsible approach to setting contributions to reserves. It's important to note, however, in the report that the average annual spend in our current 10-year capital outlook and the approved asset management plan, there's a gap there that needs to be closed. The asset management plan that was approved by council last year calls for $18.5 million per year in annual investment over 25 years to address the current backlog and prevent further deterioration of our assets. Due to funding and capacity constraints, our current 10-year capital outlook does not achieve these objectives. The contributions calculated using this policy after preparing a strategic 25-year capital outlook would look materially different than what's estimated currently in chart 2, which shows an average contribution of approximately 8.7 million per year. And that is before decisions are made regarding levels of service or facility redevelopment. So this policy doesn't solve our challenges. The intent is really to provide a structured way to move forward while we continue to learn and refine our capital plan. So in that spirit, this is less about having a rigid plan and more about building a thoughtful, adaptable framework, one that can be understood, managed, and trusted. So as we move forward, the next steps would be to receive feedback from council members and key internal managers and directors over the next few months with a focus on clarity and comfort with the assumptions. How do they feel about the discount approach, the investment risk tolerance, the feasibility of a 25-year capital plan, and the appropriateness of a 10-year funding runway? We'd also be looking to incorporate the yet to be confirmed, capital service level targets with an understanding of the financial implications tied to each, and then presenting an updated impact analysis and draft policy for committee's consideration and recommendation before the end of 2025. So with that, I'll leave it with you, Chair, for any questions. Thank you.
This is for information.
We're not hearing anything.
You're not Mike's not.
My apologies, Councillor Kent. I didn't have my mic on. Sorry, Councillor Kent.
Mark, that was very helpful. Could you just tell us what the primary findings financially were from your report? And I realize they're highly preliminary and based upon the methodology you used, but it's the general messages that come out from the findings that you prepared regarding how much reserves we have, how much we need, how much our shortfall looks like, and what our backlog might be.
Sure, through you, Chair. So I think generally in the report, what I've outlined is we have approximately about, I would say, $10 million of capital funding available through our reserve funds, and then we would add on to that some of our obligatory reserves, development charges, and parkland. So we're probably in around a total, including the two, about 14 million is what we have available. If we took this model and we applied it retrospectively, and we said, so based on what we have as our capital spend in 2025, what should we have been starting to spend in 2016 and carrying that forward? We should probably have about $45 million in our reserves today. So we've got a funding gap based on, and that's using a 10-year window. And I recognize, this is a very generic number. Not all of our asset classes have a 10-year life. So we could be looking at modifying this model to say longer lived assets, we start saving much farther in advance. A 40-year asset, 40 years in advance. A 5-year asset, 5 years in advance. So it becomes a little more technical, but suffice to say, we do not have enough money in our reserves today to fund our current 10-year plan. And I think we've seen some charts on that show our reserve balances continuing to go down based on our current level of spending. Also for 2025, council agreed and council voted to put $6 million out of the tax levy into the reserve. And I applaud council's decision to do that. I think that was an excellent decision to do. Based on this model, what should have been put in using this formula would have been about 8.3 million. So we're still not funding enough just to fund our current 10-year plan. So I think what we're really seeing is the fact that we are still underfunding our current asset needs, and we haven't even identified all of them. We haven't considered, asset redevelopments. We don't know the impacts of our building condition assessments yet and what those might uncover that we may not be aware of. So there's a number of things I think that we need to consider continue to consider as we move forward. And again, the asset management plan, not as granular as our 10-year capital plan, but certainly gives us an overall indication of things that are in the pipeline, perhaps beyond the 10-year window. I don't know if that's helpful, but so a few things that come to mind for me.
Could I have this?
Supplemental?
Yeah, very supplement. That was very helpful, Mark. I just want to reiterate. So what you said was that based upon the current 10-year plan, we should have been at 8 rather than 6 approximately, but that doesn't even touch the backlog of what it might be 20 or $25 million of what we need to eventually either fix or not fix or make slow headway on. Did I get that right?
So through you, Chair. So I think that'd be correct. And Director Colucci can add in with respect to our current priorities in terms of, like, for example, road projects. We recognize the constraints around funding and the constraints around capacity, just the ability to get people to be able to do work. But the roads that are selected, for example, in 2025 are the worst of the worst, but certainly there still would remain after this current fiscal year, roads that are below what would be considered an acceptable condition, and that would need to, so it doesn't address all of the backlog that needs to be addressed. That's in that very tall bar in that first column of the asset management plan.
Thank you. I'm going to go Councillor Burry, Councillor Zavitz. I couldn't remember who had their hand up. And then Councillor Burry.
Thank you, and through you. I applaud the work that's being done here and think it's fantastic. Where we as a corporation decide to increase the amounts in our reserves, we need to be extra prudent that we're investing that money in an appropriate way that would show that we're not so that we can actually contribute to the reserves by having returns in excess of what other people might be able to do. There's an argument of do you pay me now or do you pay me later as constituents, and have those surprises 40 years from now when the bridge goes down, as opposed to saving for 40 years. My experience with a university that's got some bullet bonds, when we put them together, we decided that we would actually treat them as sinking funds. And so the funds have been in long-term pooled funds within the university that we're investing. But we've made a conscious decision to actually have that as an added contribution to the operating budget. And in many ways, we can do the same here if we're thoughtful and we're prudent about it. So our investment policy statement currently has been expanded a little bit, but if we are going to put more into reserves that have a longer dated periods, I think we should be looking at expanding our investment policy to include other kinds of asset classes that will bring us equally risk-adjusted returns, things in the private space, potentially some infrastructure and some real estate, other than the pieces that we own. If we are saving for longer term, longer duration assets where we can take a little bit of volatility there, but we can actually show to our constituents that we're looking at this in a very constructive and prudent way, as opposed to just coming to them every 40 years and saying, well, it's time for a few $1 million because we got to build a new bridge. It's a great space that we're in, and I applaud the Mark and his team for getting us to where we are.
Thank you. Councillor Zavitz.
Great, thank you, and through you to Mark. So great report, of course. Thanks again, Mark. You continue to show us guidance, and I'm certainly appreciative of that. I see in your report highlights that while you're asking, I guess it's a combination of our input here and now and sort of going forward. You also indicate, of course, we're waiting for the asset levels of service, the arena feasibility study, and the fire station location study. Can you speak to what you see vis-a-vis the 14 million that you referred to, as opposed to what these reports, which I'm presuming are going to be coming forward to us over the next 30, 60, 90 days? Kind of hard for us as a council or as a committee to provide comment when we don't know that universe Can you speak to that? I mean, maybe that's asking for the reports before they're available, but.
So through you, Chair. So I can't give you any clarity around what is coming. I mean, with respect to the 14 million, I mean, all I can say to that is based on our projected requirements, that's not going to be enough money to do everything we need to do. The decisions, I suppose, that will come forward from those reports that you're alluding to, the arena feasibility, fire location, level of service, I mean, that will be a conversation that council and committee will have around what they see as the future desired state of the level of service and service offerings that the community offers. So that's still a to be determined. So I can't offer much in that way. I just wanted to go back to Councillor Burry's comments as well. So I'm glad you brought up the investment policy, because that is a complementary piece to what we're trying to do here. That was exactly the intent of bringing that policy forward and getting that in place so that we had the tools available to try to take what we have and build it as well as we can, so that we're not placing undue burden on the taxpayers. If we're asking for this money for capital just in time, then we're asking the taxpayers to fund 100% of whatever the cost is of what we're building. Where if we can contribute and build a sinking fund far in advance, we can use that money and have the markets leverage that to be able to reduce the burden on the local taxpayer. And that was the intent of doing that. However, I just wanted to add that what we currently have in our policy statement is the maximum that's allowable under the Municipal Act. So they're very restrictive in terms of what we can and can't invest in. So we are certainly using the advice of our investors to ensure that we're optimizing everything we can under those legal list investments.
Thank you. Any other comments? Mayor Kelly?
Thank you, and through you, and just to add to the accolades, terrific job with this report, terrific job getting us this far and creating the confidence, I think, around the table that that you're going to provide the good guidance. This is as you said here, it's not a specific plan, and more or less it's guidance and a bit of a insight into the challenges that we have ahead, and forces us to think wisely at every step along the way how we're going to fund it all. So great work. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Any other, Councillor Kent?
Thank you for indulging me. Just one further comment. Due to some incredible AI ChatGPT searching of Councillor Bosworth, I think one thing that Mark will probably evaluate, I know we've discussed it, is the fact that I think the analysis does depend on what kind of asset class you're talking about. And this whole discussion of if you use debt to finance a new arena, for example, you're matching the costs of that arena with the current users of the arena. If you use the sinking fund method that Mark has developed, which is very clever, it actually impacts the current community members more to be paying for future investments that they may never get the use of. So I think that one of the considerations as we move this forward is to evaluate which asset classes belong with which methodology, making sure, in essence, trying to figure out what the right burden on the current taxpayer is versus the wrong burden. And Mark can be more specific, and certainly Councillor Bosworth can, about these different approaches. And I may be going under or over people's knowledge of the subject, but I learned a lot in the last 24 hours due to Councillor Bosworth bringing this up. And I think that that's something that needs to be thought about a bit more. It's just a future iteration of the good work that's been done.
Okay, thank you. Did you have any comment?
I'll just make a very brief comment. Thank you, Councillor Kent. So yeah, I mean, that conversation about generational equity has been one that's been raised many times, and around who should be paying for what. And we've talked a lot about good debt and bad debt and those types of things. And again, I just, the constraint that we have that some other organizations may not have is just around the Municipal Act and our borrowing capacity. And I've shared some information with councillors about what that current borrowing capacity is. So we just have to be mindful that that whatever we choose to do with our debt, that we're optimizing that tool, because there's a limit to how much we can actually take on.
Yes, the generational equity has been an ongoing discussion, hasn't it? Thank you very much. Are there any other comments? Seeing none, thank you very
Great.
much. for
Thank
your
you.
Report. Moving on to 8G. Lehman.
Thanks. Thanks. Hi again, Chair Mazan and members of the committee. You have before you a report describing the revisions to the public conduct policy, which was adopted alongside the complaint policy in 2020. The revisions include de-escalation for in-person interactions, a description of unacceptable behavior with a high bar, and a process change to restrictions being imparted only after the director, CAO, and clerk review them, and an appeal process to go through the ombudsman. So I'm available for questions if you have them.
Okay, thank you. There is a resolution committee, so if there are any questions. Seeing none, I'll read the resolution. Moved by Councillor Kent, seconded by Councillor Bosenworth. Be it resolved that revisions to the public conduct policy C-LS-15 as attached as Appendix 1 to report HR-2025-002 be adopted. Are there any comments? Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? That carries. Thank you, Ms. Lehman. Director Colucci, 9A.
Good morning, Chair. So this is an information report, just to give you an update on the old Walker's Point Fire Hall at 1355 Walker's Point Road. Early in the ice storm, we determined that the roof on that facility had collapsed, and the building was marked off so that we couldn't enter it. And this is just to lay out the next steps in that process. So we will be doing three things. First is we'll be doing a condition assessment of the building and to get estimates of the roof repair. We'll also be doing evaluation of the property with and without the building. So if we were to get rid of the building, and then also exploring other uses. So, you know, that this is a property that's across from Lake Muskoka, and there is a property that we do own that includes a road allowance down to the lake. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. So this is for information committee. Do we have any questions, comments? Councillor Nishikawa?
Again, it's this comes up. Well, it's interesting that the roof has collapsed, but there's been people asking about this. But one of the things that surprises me within the report and things is we were instructed, I'm going back in maybe 2005 or something like that, that the land was contaminated. Like so I'm not quite sure if we need to do that study or not. Or if it's whenever we make a decision, it's, you know, buyer beware kind of thing. But that was a big deal. Like that came up a number of times within that particular building. And because there's been, again, lots of people that have come forward on the point that would love to just have a garage in that particular location for themselves. So, because that was the only thing that was reported to councils at the time that were suitable. So I'm not sure where we're not talking about that, or I'm not quite sure where that conversation is.
And through you, Madam Chair. So, you know, that would be part of the process. We would, you know, through the evaluation, we look at the reports and see if there is any contamination there, and that would be part of the evaluation process. So, and I did hear rumors of that as well. So, you know, where staff will be looking back at prior reports and see if there's any evidence of such thing.
Okay. Thank you. And thank you for bringing this forward to our attention.
Thank you.
Item 11A, Mr. Cox.
Madam Chair. I think I need to recuse from this. I'm on the board of the Community Foundation.
Okay.
So if we're talking about the Community Foundation, I do need to recuse. If we're not, then I'm okay.
I don't think it's in the report. I don't think it's in the report.
Okay.
Is it? No, this is our grant. I can't, none of us can make a decision for you, but having read the report.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be a decision I think you have to make. Okay. Mr. Cox.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of committee. My report this morning contains a proposed update to the Municipal Grants Program policy. As outlined in the report, staff are proposing several changes to both the community grant and operating grant streams with the aim of making the program more focused and effective overall. Most notably, staff are proposing that the policy be updated to include assessment criteria to guide council and staff in prioritizing eligible grant applications as they come in. The details of these and other changes proposed are contained in the report and the redlined version of the policy that is found in the appendix. Committee will recall that staff are also in discussions with the Muskoka Community Foundation for the potential creation of a Muskoka Lakes Community Fund, which will either work in conjunction with or supersede the existing community grant program in future years. These discussions remain ongoing at this point. The updates to the municipal grant program that are before you today are being brought forward separately in order to avoid any delay in the spring intake of our municipal grants program. That concludes my remarks this morning, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that committee may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Committee, there's a resolution, so I will ask for any questions of Mr. Cox. Councillor Zavitz?
Probably a dumb one, through you to James. So the spring tranche, if you will, of consideration, which we'll be approving today, presumably. Last year, of course, we used all the 25,000 up in the spring and that was it. Is that sort of, I mean, are you getting a sense from the community who's probably come and knocked on your door and said, when is this happening? Are we going to be in a situation like that where it's 25,000? I'm not asking, is it enough, but will we essentially, in your mind, exhaust that 25K this spring? Thank you.
Mr. Cox?
Through you, Madam Chair. I will say that I have received a number of inquiries from community groups who are eager to get applications into the municipal grant program this year. So, of course, we don't know exactly how many applications we'll get until we open the program, but there is a lot of interest out there. So I think that based on that and the experience in previous years, it's very possible that I would even say it's probably likely that we will receive applications that would account for the entire amount of community funding that was included in the budget. The proposed changes to the grants policy that are in front of you today do not propose to change the procedure where we would make the entire amount of funding available in the spring and then have a second intake only if funds remain. But if that's something that committee would wish to consider, that's certainly something staff.
Councillor Zavitz?
Thank you, and through your supplemental, if I might. So again, just to carry on with your thought, so we get 13 requests and it's totals $28,000. Are we going to be doing that? Let's give everyone 2,000, and like I'm saying, I'd like to understand how to drill down on that in your mind. What do you see happening? Or do some people simply, if everyone qualifies and we only have 25,000, do we break the 25K down into a bite-sized chunk for everyone, or do some people simply not get it?
Mr. Cox?
Through you, Madam Chair, that is exactly part of the intent of this policy update. Previous to this incarnation of the policy, there has been no real criteria in the policy that staff or council can use to prioritize or assess the applications. This policy proposes to put some of those criteria in place, most notably by asking grant applicants to demonstrate both the long-term impact of their program on the community, but also to demonstrate how their program aligns with the strategic priorities of the municipality. So certainly the intent would be that this would give us guidance so that we could prioritize those applications that most closely align with the goals of the policy and fund those. Certainly if there's a case where we have a number of applications coming forward that all equally conform to those criteria, we could certainly consider bringing forward approving a grant that is less than the stated intent. But the policy is really intended to provide flexibility in order for staff and council to make that determination collectively.
Susan, your mic's not on.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor McIntyre, seconded by Councillor Edwards. Be it resolved that the updates to policy C-FS-09 municipal grants program attached to staff report DSES-2025-014 as appendix 1 be approved. Are there any other comments? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? That carries. Thank you very much, Mr. Cox.
Thank you.
Okay, so we are now moving into our new business section. We did hear earlier today a delegation from the Walker's Point group, our Locking group, about the donation of the military memorial steps. So before we get into that discussion, I would like to ask Director Donaldson if you have any thoughts or suggestions as a path forward on this particular ask.
Thank you, through you, Chair. So I think it was mentioned earlier that the issue that I stumbled upon was the fact that the request was being made in lieu of payment for an invoice. But if committee and council feels it appropriate to accept the stone that was provided by the vendor as a gift in kind in accordance with our policy, then I would have no concerns with issuing a tax donation receipt for the value of the stone once approved by council.
Thank you. So, committee?
What I'm not clear about, through you to Director Donaldson, is what that amount is. Because I'm not sure if they issued a certain bill for the stone or the steps, or I just don't want us to have to come back to look at this. And so I want to make sure that the whole $1,800 or whatever they ask is covered within this. So
Director
does it
Donaldson?
have to look different, I guess is what I'm saying.
Director Donaldson?
Yeah, so through you, Chair. So the value that's been quoted by the vendor would be what, in my estimation, the fair value of the materials of the product. So therefore, that would be the amount of the tax receipt, is the amount that has been identified by the group as the vendor's cost of the stone.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Zavitz.
Thank you, through you. I guess I would state too, in our ex-councilor's presentation, in terms of our director, our ex-director, Ken Becking of Public Works, I do believe certainly of his verbal commitment. And I think that was the spirit of them moving ahead. And so I think in that regard, I would do whatever I could to support this committee in somehow, the recompense, if you will, of helping out here. And so to that end, I would, if there's a motion to be brought for whatever, I would certainly second it or move it forward. Thank you.
So staff have kindly drafted a resolution, so perhaps I could read that resolution. Is that okay? And then we could have comments. Thank you. Moved by Councillor Burry, seconded by Councillor Zavitz. Whereas gifts in kind are accepted at the township's discretion under council policy C-FS-15 donation tax receipt issuance policy. And whereas the Walker's Point Construction Incorporated wishes to donate gifts in kind of 3 7-inch granite steps and the 3 boulders that bookcase the steps at the Walker's Point Barlocken Military Memorial located at the Walker's Point Community Center. Now therefore be it resolved that committee approve receipt of the gifts in kind from Walker's Point Construction Incorporated. So are there any questions or comments? Councillor Burry and then Councillor McIntyre.
I think if my memory serves, they said that the combination of those stones was something in the relative range of $1,800 plus HST, which would certainly get the donation to be equal. So I think we're there. Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Councillor McIntyre.
I just want to throw in my 2 cents worth because this is something that's pretty important to me and to my constituents to say. I'm really glad that this got resolved. I think it's the right decision and I'm pretty proud of the council for getting there.
Okay,
thank you.
You're welcome. Well, I've read a resolution. So at this point, I'll call the question. All those in favor? That does carry. Moving on to the next item, as noted earlier today, Mr. Jaglowitz had written us all a letter. We've all had a chance to read that. And I believe in the communication to us, he mentioned that Councillor Roberts would introduce the topic on his behalf. And then I will turn it over to Director Donaldson for some further clarification. Councillor Roberts.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Okay. Unfortunately, as you're all aware, Mr. Jaglowitz could not attend today, and he asked me to speak on his behalf, but I want to make it clear, I am not, I guess I just contradict myself, not speaking on Mr. Jaglowitz' behalf, only summarizing what he communicated in his email to the township yesterday afternoon. And we've all had the letter there, so just in summary, for the public information, Mr. Jaglowitz issue is that bylaw 2024-054 that deals with the collection of taxes, penalties, and interest for 2024 does not give any discretion to the Director of Finance to adjust penalties and interest in the event of an error or mistake of innocent taxpayer. In addition, bylaw 2023-109 that establishes various fees and charges provides a fee to issue any arrears notice and a second fee to transfer payments to the intended account. The Director of Finance should also have a discretion when these charges
Okay.
Mr. Friedel.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, I think because we've all read this, I feel like that probably satisfies this group's at least understanding of the issue. At this point, perhaps I can hand it over to Director Donaldson to help us understand this from staff's perspective.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. So the purpose of penalties and interest for taxes is to encourage compliance with the bylaw and remove any subjective application by members of staff. One purpose for the late penalties and interest is to discourage taxpayers from delaying their tax payments, but another important purpose is to encourage taxpayers to accurately report and pay the correct amounts of taxes in a timely manner. And these charges incentivize taxpayers to ensure that they're paying the right account, and that promotes efficient tax administration. And I empathize with Mr. Jaglowitz, and it's frustrating for taxpayers, but penalties are intended to maintain the accuracy and accountability and fairness of our property tax system. And the penalties act as deterrents for taxpayers who might otherwise neglect to check the details of their tax payments and use staff resources to have to create or have to complete administrative tasks that would be in addition to the already significant tax burden that we have with, we have over 14,000 tax accounts that we administer each and every year. So by applying the penalties, it also motivates taxpayers who identify errors to quickly rectify those problems. And then both the taxpayer and the township can get ensure that we have an accurate record keeping and by putting the penalties on, it provides that incentive for a tax owner to promptly correct the issue that is occurring. So overall, they Penalties are a preventative measure. They're also a way of corrective action to get things accurately reported for us within the township. And I would not recommend or discourage committee from changing the current bylaw and policy as it is currently written.
Okay, thank you. So with that committee, any comments, Councillor Zavitz?
Thank you. And through you to Mark. Can you speak to the enormity of this particular scenario? I mean, is this out of the 14,000, is this once 20, 55 times, or just in terms of the scope of the potential problem?
Okay, thank you.
So through your chair, I can't speak with specificity of the number of times this occurs, but it does occur, I would say, with some from time to time, particularly with owners that have multiple properties. So they may pay a tax amount for property A and they may pay property B, which may not be sufficient to cover the full bill. So then there are penalties and interests that do occur from time to time in that circumstance.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
So thank you for that. And so to that end, you always find a resolution is, I mean, you're not coming forward asking for a change. It's a public member. So you must feel that you have the tools to handle this on a one-off basis.
So through you, Chair, so the way it's handled is if a taxpayer makes an error and penalties and interest are attributed to their tax account, then they are responsible to pay the penalties and interest. And we have received requests in the past to have those amounts waived, and I do not have authority through the bylaw to do that, and that does not occur.
And from what I heard, you're not recommending it either. So Mayor Kelly, and then I thought I saw a hand over here. No? Okay, Mayor Kelly?
Thank you. And through you, this just probably doesn't even weigh in on the decision, but I'm curious to know, do the arrears notices break out a line item between penalties and interest, or is it just a lump sum?
Thank you.
I don't honestly know the answer to that question. I could find out, but I actually haven't reviewed it.
We finally got him. Councillor Bosemarth?
Thank you, and through you. Without getting the specifics on this case, how much are the interest and penalties? How punitive are they?
Okay.
And as an example, if you had 20,000, I guess it's both time and amount based.
Sure. So through you, Chair, so the maximum amount that is allowable prescribed by the Municipal Act is 1.25% per month. And that's what we charge. That'd be 18% per year, I guess.
Supplemental, that's interest and penalty?
Or 15%. So that's, yeah, they're the same percentage. So in the first period of time, it's a penalty, and then there's interest on that going forward on the outstanding balance.
Thank you. So I'm not seeing any other hands at this point. Okay, so Councillor Bosemarth?
There was another question.
Mhm.
When you have an error like this, I presume staff ultimately moves when the error is finally discovered. Whose responsibility is to make the correction, and how does that happen?
Okay, thank you.
So through you, Chair, so we're directed by the taxpayer to make the change. And for that service, we do have in our fees and charges bylaw a $25 service charge to make that correction.
Thank you. Councillor Bosemarth?
So had the constituent discovered this problem early, his fees and charges would be minimal.
Thank you.
Right, through you, Chair. So as soon as we are notified by the taxpayer, we make the correction immediately. So as soon as it's identified by the taxpayer, then they notify us. We would make it. The sooner they do it, the fewer charges and penalties there would be. Interest.
Okay. Councillor Burry and Councillor Edwards.
Thank you, and through you to Director Donaldson. When an account goes in arrears, does it still does the statement still go out semi-annually, or do we increase the frequency of the statement? And is there any way to let people know earlier in the cycle that they've gone offside?
So through you, Chair, so we notify taxpayers 4 times a year. So you would receive your interim tax bill in January, which would tell you of any arrears amounts. If that is not resolved, there would be an arrears notice in late March, early April, probably in April. So that would be the second notification. Then you would, and there'd be the final tax bill that's issued in early July. So again, you would see your arrears at that point. And if that's not resolved, then there would be a second arrears notice in October, November timeframe. So if you have a balance due on your account, you would receive something 4 times a year from the municipality. If you don't have an amount due on your account, you would only get your tax bills.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Edwards, Councillor Nishikawa.
Yeah, how much is the penalty on this case right now, dollar value?
Oh, I don't think this is not. No. I think
Like,
that's
is it $50, $100,
I don't think we
$500?
can ask that question, but
Okay, then
I think that's personal information.
my next thing,
Councillor Nishikawa and then Councillor Bosenworth.
supplemental.
Oh, I apologize. Supplemental.
Sorry. Second thing, who made the mistake? Did they pay it on the wrong account, or do we enter it on the wrong account?
So through you, Chair. So the way the bylaw is written is if it's an error on the part of the township, on our staff, then I absolutely would reverse any
Okay,
penalties
that's
and
all I
interest
need to know.
related to
Thank you.
that.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Nishikawa.
Thank you. And that's my example. So I have had many people come to me over the years, quite frankly, and substantial properties. And it's interesting because they'll say, well, can't they just, we don't know until we ask, sort of thing. And really, it's like, well, did you pay your Toronto taxes? Oh yeah, that's already a given, sort of thing. So I've never understood their reasoning for us to pick up the bill. I've never had, because we wouldn't ask anybody else to conduct business that way. So I just would like to move forward on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Bosenworth, last comment, please.
I was just going to comment, if you had a $10,000 overdue at 15% or at 1.5% a month, that's $150 a month. So by the time you found out about it would be $450.
Okay, thank you. So I'm not getting a sense that we want to do anything with this. We are going to move on. Okay, thank you. District. Are there any updates either from our district councillors or questions from committee members to our district councillors? Okay, seeing none. I think we can move on from that then. Oh, except for item 5, where there's a verbal update from Ms. Huff. Thank you. Almost missed that one.
Thank you, Chair.
My apologies. We have 2 updates. So the first one. Ms. Huff.
Thank you, Chair. And I won't take much time. I just wanted to have an opportunity to update the Township Committee that the district has contemplated and is moving forward in 2 ways of updating some of their processes relating to planning. So the first relates to signs. So they're proposing to significantly modify their signage. And so making one consistent a sign in terms of size and formatting and branding to be used for any district applications. So that's plans of subdivision, zoning, or official plans. And so you're going to see some pretty large sized signs out there in the area when it comes to a subdivision. And so they're suggesting that perhaps the local municipalities consider similar usage of signs with a similar type formatting, obviously our own logo, but be that for consideration by local municipalities if there's interest. So I just wanted to advise committee on that. And then the other one is that in an effort to streamline the planning process, they have introduced and have approved a set of terms of reference for a number of different studies that are often required with planning applications. And so the benefit of that is that applicants know right from the beginning that once they're advised that certain studies are required, they go to the terms of reference, they know exactly what's required to be included in those reports. And if they do those reports in accordance with the terms of reference, they won't be required to do a peer review process. And so that's intended to streamline the process. And again, they're suggesting that this might be something that the local townships may wish to implement something similar in that case. And on the guise that it would speed up the planning process and it would also provide kind of a consistent platform across the Muskoka area. So I just wanted to let Township Committee know that. And if any questions, happy to answer them. Thank you.
Just a quick one. So the signs would be what we normally call the pink signs? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. And thank you for bringing that forward. Moving on now to item 6. I think this is you, Chief Morrell. The next one, the ice storm.
Yeah, it's more of a district council.
You're 13.
Yes, so are we on to the district council emergency meeting or are we moving on to the ice storm? We're moving on to the ice storm. Okay. Chief Morrell, I know you're keen.
Okay, through you, I'm just sensitive to the fact that it's
Okay.
afternoon for council here.
Thank you for that.
To provide a verbal update to this committee through you. Thank you for the opportunity to provide this verbal update. Here's a brief timeline of the ice storm for Muskoka Lakes. Been asked to put this together in brevity, so bear with me. If there are questions, I can take questions as we get to the points. On Friday, March 28th, the emergency services team was first made aware through Environment Canada in a second meeting. There had been a primary meeting on the Thursday that there had been updates to social media that were provided by Environment Canada that a significant weather event was going to be hitting our area at 4 o'clock. This weather was updated and preparedness was set out on our social media platforms for people to be ready and have a 72-hour kit ready. On Saturday, March 29th at 2:08 a.m., the first reported hydro outage occurred in Milford Bay. On this day, the fire department would have 21 calls by the day's end. The library canceled all its programming at 7:30 a.m. 8:30 a.m. The District of Muskoka declared a significant weather event that was posted on Facebook. At 9:40 a.m., the weather update was reposted on our Facebook page. At 11:15 a.m., the district sent out a voyant alert indicating to the public that there was a significant weather event occurring, and they also had a declaration placed on their own roads. They also, in this same declaration, recommended avoiding travel and reminding that the weather warning was in effect till Sunday. They also updated their municipal 511. At 11:26 a.m. on Saturday, March 29th, the township declared a significant weather event through our Public Works Department, and this was posted on our township Facebook page. At 11:57 a.m., the township Facebook also indicated more warnings. We posted regarding downed lines, and there was outage map information that was shared for Hydro One. At 1:30 p.m., Environment Canada had an additional meeting indicating how long the ice storm event would last for. This is still on Saturday, March 29th. Another weather event was posted on our Facebook page at 2:55. By 7:40 p.m., the radio tower for the Muskoka Lakes Fire Department failed, and Muskoka Lakes was only on a radio system that indicated a point-to-point system. Sunday, March 30th, from 2 a.m. to 8 p.m., there would be 21 new additional fire calls that would come in, making all the fire calls from the start of the event at 42. Hydro alarms, fire alarms, actual hydro lines on fire, and propane tanks that were punctured were many of the calls that were received. At 10:30 a.m., the OPP issued a warning on Sunday, March 30th, that their 911 call system was overloaded and to stay home. At 11 a.m., the first Muskoka Emergency Response Coordinators meeting, this is the district meeting of all the Community Emergency Management Coordinators, was held. There'd be 2 meetings daily until April 14th after this time. 11:16 a.m., there was an email from Corey Moore closing the community center events. At 12:20 p.m. on Sunday, March 30th, District of Muskoka warned staying off the roads and sent out a voyant alert to all the subscribers. The radio tower was brought back on full power because of a part that was raced up from Aurelia. So Muskoka Lakes was back in business in terms of the fire department, not having to go radio to radio at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. At 3 o'clock in the afternoon, the emergency control group met. This is from the township that included the deputy mayor and the mayor. They would meet now 2 times daily until April the 10th. 3:39 p.m., the OPP again warned to stay off the roads and to stay away from down lines. At 4:34 p.m., the first list of blocked roads was provided to the fire department from the Public Works Department, and 38 roads were on that list. This was shared internally with the emergency control group at the district and as well their roads authority. At 4:44 p.m. on Sunday, March 30th, the district declared a state of emergency. They did this due to the fact that the situation was an extraordinary event. It posed a threat to essential services, notably potable water and energy. It attracted a lot of media attention, and it had potential for legal action. They held this declaration until, I believe, April the 14th. Monday, March 31st, an additional 13 fire calls were received by the fire department. The warming centers were now opened on the Monday. From 10 a.m. till 5 p.m., 4 warming centers were opened. Torrance, Milford Bay, Port Carling, and Raymond were the locations. At 10:17 a.m. that same morning, MNRF reported that their response phone lines were down to report a forest fire, in the likelihood that a forest fire would occur during an ice event. However, their phone lines were down. At 11:36 a.m., the Red Cross agreement was reviewed by internal teams in preparation for long-term shelters if required. At 3:34 p.m. on that same day, the Monday, the second list of block roads was provided to the fire department, which was uploaded to the district and to the hydro authorities so that they could begin clearing those lines off the road. At 4 o'clock p.m. on that Monday, 40 new wellness checks were completed by the OPP and the fire department. On Tuesday, April 1st, 5 additional fire calls happened that day. Again, the warming centers were open from 10 till 5 in those 4 same locations. The third list of block roads was provided with 54 roads on it. This was provided also to the Ontario Emergency Management Group at the province so that they could help with putting pressure on hydro. At 3 o'clock p.m. on Tuesday, April 1st, another weather event was approaching, and there was another weather event meeting that was held, and there was subsequent postings on Facebook and social media at 5:40. On Wednesday, April 2nd, fire calls went back to normal, only 3 calls a day. The fourth list of blocked roads was provided to both the fire department and to the upper tier district. There were 20 new roads that were added. Again, the warming centers were open from 10 till 5 on that day. Again, the warming centers were open again on Thursday, the April 3rd, with 4 warming centers open. On this day, though, on April 3rd, due to the new ice event that had occurred, the power went out in Bracebridge, which actually had their district phone lines going down. The day prior, on April the 2nd, they had started a hotline and started advertising it on April the 3rd, and it actually had failed due to the power outage. Power then resumed in the district at 11:42 a.m. At 9:44 a.m. on that same day, there was a road closure announced by the Public Works Department of the township due to a culvert that had failed on Gross Road. 2:20 that day, there was a meeting with the Canadian Red Cross regarding updating the agreement in the event that we would have to use their services. There was a list of block roads. The 5th list of block roads was provided to the upper tier and hydro. There were 12 roads on the list at this time. At 4:22 p.m. on Thursday, April 3rd, the district brought out its brush disposal policy, and at 6:15 p.m. on that same day, wellness checks were provided by the fire department looking after 13 new roads. On Friday, April 4th, 6 fire calls came into the fire department. Warming centers were open again, this time only in 3 locations from 10 till 4 p.m. Raymond had little to no usage, so it was determined that it should be closed. 11:30 a.m. on this day, 15,500 customers were reported by hydro to still be without power in the Muskoka district. At 1:44 p.m., Parks closed the trails and the parks for the township on Friday, the April 4th. On Saturday, April 5th, warming centers were open again, 3 only. At 11:30 a.m., 11,000 customers were reported without power by Hydro One in the area. On Sunday, April 6th, warming centers were open 3 only, and then ice water rescue was performed by the fire department. Monday, April 7th, 8th, and 9th, warming centers were open now at only 2 locations due to usage. And I believe that was Torrance and Milford Bay. Private road wellness checks were started by the Muskoka Lakes Fire Department as they had not been performed to this point. It was just public roads that were being checked. And again, there was another ice water rescue performed at 4:24 in the afternoon. The significant weather event is still in effect for the township of Muskoka Lakes. And I believe that warming centers were closed April the 10th, April 9th being the last day that they were open. Monday, April 14th, the district lifted its declaration of emergency with 620 customers. Mostly these are waterfront access properties without power. No calls for service and no calls for opening more warming centers were received after April the 10th. And currently there is still a significant weather event in effect for the township of Muskoka Lakes. I'll defer to my counterpart in Public Works if you'd like to add.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Chair. I don't have much to add because that's a very detailed response there. But yes, the significant weather event is still in place. We are hoping to lift that tomorrow. Even though we have about still 25% of our roads are affected by trees, we have about 12 crews from contractors working right now to help us relocate the trees. And we have one of our own chipper crews working as well with them. And of course, our staff are continuing to do as much normal operational maintenance as they can. So we have some graders out that are grading some of the roads, and we have pothole crews that are filling potholes, and all those various things have to continue. Our parks crew is also working to clear some of the parks. We've had some major tree damage to our parks and to our cemeteries. So we're working with a couple of contractors there to help start clearing some of the parks and some of our other facilities. So, we expect the total cleanup will probably take another month or, 5 weeks until everything is cleaned up. And of course, that'll be like a once over of all the roads, and then we'll have to go back and check them again because we have a lot of trees that are partially broken, they're hanging on. And, we have to make sure with bucket trucks and clear all those out. So that'll sort of be the next stage of our restoration.
Okay, thank you. Is there anything else to add from a staff perspective? Committee, that was a very detailed overview. I do want to thank staff. I am going to ask if there are any questions at this point. Councillor Zavitz?
Thank you, and through you. So the thing that we get, out in the field, if you will, is a lot of calls and questions about who is responsible for what. There's a hydro crew out there on a township road, and all of a sudden the Davy truck, the tree truck is there, and they're grooming things away. But then people are told that, well, the hydro truck can't come on the person's property unless, if there's a tree on the line or whatever, anyway, it just seems a great job, and this is really not any kind of a criticism, but some sort of a vehicle where more information could be available online, maybe on Facebook, on blasts out there about, if you see this occurring, here's what you might find. I got a lot of calls from people saying, well, they're on they won't come onto my property and affect a change to the line because there's a tree on the line and there's a secondary person that needs to come on and approve after the tree's removed. I don't know. So I found that there was a lot of confusion. What is the role of fire? Who do I call when I'm, so anyway.
Thank you. Chief Moreau?
All right, I'll take this question through you in 2 parts. Number 1, the role of the fire department is to look after life safety threats. When there's a threat to a life or a property that could be damaged, that's when you engage the fire department. When we would go to a property and there's a limb on a line, for example, we will then engage Hydro One, identify it, and then they will determine what priority it has and then come back and remove that limb from the line. If there's no life in threat, the fire services will go back to the fire hall and be prepared for the next life-threatening call. To your question, I think what a lot of people saw out there was because of the unprecedented nature of the event, there were what they called go teams that went ahead of the actual team that did the work, and they were in smaller pickup trucks. And oftentimes these hydro employees were the kind of employees that just regularly read your meter and set out jobs, engineers and that type. They're not the power line worker themselves. So what they would do is then identify what's going on and then identify that work that needed to be planned out, that needed to be done later on in the day. So a lot of what they were doing was scouting out the work and then making a plan for how many poles were damaged, how much infrastructure needed to be brought in. So a lot of people would have a lot of visits from Hydro One vehicles on their property before something would get rectified or even that the power would be turned back on. And that was a problem all across the area. The power would come back on, more trees would be found on lines, the power would be shut off. So it's a very complicated event, and hence the reason why it was my recommendation to our emergency control group to not declare an emergency, because that would distract from the only people that are able to solve the problem, which is Hydro One. And we had pressure on Hydro One through the district declaration of emergency, which I applaud them for doing.
Thank you. Councillor Roberts?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I applaud staff for their excellent response into this event. When I was, and another comment here or request is that was an excellent report that was provided by staff on what occurred. And I think that it would be very valuable to I can say to the Milford Bay community and probably to other communities if we had a synopsis, just as Chief Morrell listed there, so we could send out saying this is the chain of events that happened. That's just a suggestion, and I think it'd be very valuable to our constituents. Facebook had a lot of, was being informed about the comments that were on Facebook. Why isn't the township doing that? And et cetera. And I had calls from constituents. And I think the biggest problem that they have is they don't really fully understand the roles and responsibilities of the process and who does what. And Councillor Zavitz talked about that a bit. And I have asked Councillor Edwards to consider seconding motions to staff that that staff do a report that sort of maybe just summarizes our policies or our procedures for the event. I wouldn't get into the hydro and stuff like that. We could mention that we don't do that kind of stuff, but I think it would help. And also, that document, still the same document would say, here's where a lot of people don't have internet and that. So it's a challenge there, but to saying here's what you should do in an event. And so that's what I'm asking, if we could get a simple talk document out to the community, which would maybe curtail the chatter on Facebook and help the constituents understand exactly what the protocols are and the procedures, etc. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Just for my clarity, was that specific to the warming centers, Councillor Roberts?
Yes, thank you. Yes,
okay.
Specific to the warming centers, and also probably it would help the whole thing is why isn't the township doing something about this? And it's not within. I could see it wasn't within our swim lane, as some people like to do that, but.
So we could probably provide a link to the details of the actual response that TML provided simply by today's meeting from Chief Morrell and Director Clucci as a summary. But second to that there's a possible next step coming out of this to better understand the approach we take with warming centers, and that could be at a subsequent meeting. Is that? I just want to make sure I'm clear.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so. Staff can draft up the resolution. I think you noticed, Councillor Edwards, you'd be willing to second something just to come back with a future discussion on warming centers.
Yeah, and that would be fine. Something simple, because as I know, every event is slightly different. So, there's going to be different steps and that, but it's just a broad policy and that.
Okay, thank
I wouldn't spend too much time on it, but just list where the centers are, if they're open, something to that effect, but excellent job by the fire department and the public works. Thank you very much from all the citizens.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Nishikawa?
Thank you. And I don't want to belabor this, but communication is lacking hugely, at least in some communities. When your internet is taken out and really, and even to the point where you can't use your phone properly. So, and for days. That's the reality of many in I would say Ward A that I dealt with. And I did not, all I kept hearing about was Facebook and this, and go on the internet, and it's like, not available. It's quiet out here. I'm just saying, I really hope that our township can find a different way, a different manner. I'm not sure how it could be, but it should be open to discussion of communicating with people when they're in fact cut off and in fact, when their roads are completely blocked. And yeah, how are we communicating with people?
Okay. I think staff have actually helped draft a resolution that I can read in a moment. While I'm waiting for that to print, I had I'm going to call it the time and the privilege to be able to participate now in multiple of these events. And I think Mayor Kelly had hoped to be able to say some of these things, but I will try in his current absence to extend to the entire community the level of commitment and service that our senior leadership team, our operational team, our emergency management team, a lot of them are volunteers themselves, having to live through the same kind of conditions, but showing up with a level of care through this, I will call it an emergency, because it certainly was. We had constituents here earlier today saying it took 14 days to get back power. That is an emergency. And I think I need to add my thanks to this group for your ongoing commitment. It started back in November. And I think anybody we've talked to who has had to live through this particular winter, it's been a lot. And it's always the same group of people that are showing up and clearing our trees, doing their best to communicate out to groups of people. It's not easy. I can assure you that. Having witnessed this, participated in these meetings, I don't say this lightly. I'm incredibly proud. We're a small but very nimble community. We're resilient. For those of you living through this, the resilience is evident. And I just, perhaps on behalf of Mayor Kelly and I just can't thank you guys enough. It's tiring, and we're still living through it. And Mayor Kelly just walked in at the exact right moment. I think on behalf of both of us who had to participate in these calls, and it's still ongoing, your work and your time is noted. It's appreciated. So thank you to all of those involved. That said, I tried in your absence to articulate this.
Still talking, so it must be like.
You didn't hear him say that. I'm still talking, so it must be like him. I do have a resolution. Can I read the resolution to help move this along? Is that okay? To acknowledge the discussion on particularly the warming centers so that can come back, not today. But let's work through this. You just heard from staff that they're still working through this and it's going to take some time. So let's do it when we can have a really thoughtful discussion about, we've had multiple of these events. We need to understand them. We need to understand how to staff them. We need to understand how they get used. Everybody needs to have that better understanding, but let's do it at the right moment and the right time to do that thoughtfully. So moved by Councillor Edwards, seconded by Councillor Roberts. Be it resolved that staff be directed to report back regarding the current operation of reception, warming, cooling centers within the township during an emergency or significant weather event, including an analysis on potential alternative options moving forward. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Okay, thank you. That does carry. We are now moving district request status update. You walked in, okay. Glenn, Councillor Zavitz.
Thank you. It's for you. So, you know, you just indicated the two emergency life-threatening events that have happened here in this township and elsewhere, you know, December to March. The third one that we're in, you know, in the middle of right now is a property threat in terms of the high water. And, you know, for us to not be having that discussion right now, personally, I am so thankful for, I know this township has really worked hard this year with the MNR. So to the senior leadership team, and you know, what we're not getting is people calling saying, my dock's gone, you know, everything's floating down the lake. Things are very positive for now, for today. And I think that bears, we should acknowledge that, because otherwise we could be in a big mess. So thanks for that.
I appreciate you bringing that up because it was interesting. I can't remember the exact date when the ice storm happened, but leading into that weekend, this is just an interesting normal or new thing that's happening. We went into that weekend with the idea of an ice storm coming. None of us expected this. And the bigger discussion at that point was that we were at a flood warning. And so coming out the other end of a weekend, you can imagine the change, and it's just trying to balance these two things. It has been a lot, and I'm grateful that you brought that up, because even in these meetings, that was still very much on top of mind and discussion with our team and in that group. So thank you for reminding us. Mayor Kelly?
Thank you, and through you. And I just to respond to Councillor Zavitz, I think appreciate the comment, but we really, you know, I'm still convinced that if we dodged a bullet, we dodged it by luck more than skill. I think there's so much work that has to be done. And we can't take this year and say, well, it worked out all right. It didn't work out all right. The cost of the anxiety, the cost of the stress, the cost of the worry, the cost of the concern, I can tell you, based on the input and the feedback that I got through the process, people were absolutely at the end of their wits trying to keep tabs. So there's a communication issue. There's this concept that there's no faith in the plan to manage the risk. There's a lack of confidence in personnel who are managing the risk. We need to fix this. And the good news is, we heard the previous Minister of Natural Resources say it was a commitment of the MNR. I have reached out to the new Minister of Natural Resources, who happens to be Michael Harris Jr., and hopefully he carries some common sense revolutionary thoughts that we can put to this. But the path forward is pretty clear. We need to address, open up, discuss, take notice of the fact that the parameters for managing that risk are 25 or 30 years, 25 years old, and they need to be, I believe they need to be amended to reflect the current reality of climate change and development, the speed with which water moves through the system, all of those things. So yes, I'm pleased. I hope the risk is behind us for this year. I haven't stopped counting the days, but we really need to make sure we get on this again fast to get the stress and the anxiety out of everybody's heart who has to live through it.
Thank you. Moving on to community events. I missed something. It's because we're getting hungry. This is why I brought chocolates today. Okay, district request status update. I'm not sure who this is. Councillor Roberts? You're on mute.
I'm sorry. I'm drawing a blank right now. And there's a reason for that. Would you please remind me?
I don't know. But...
Let's move on then. Thank you.
Okay. We can move on. Community events, Councillor Edwards.
the Windermere and District Alliance on, I believe it's the 26th, the Saturday and the Sunday, are having a pancake breakfast at the Beaches Farm off the Doherty Road. I believe it's from 10 till 1. You can check it because there's all kinds of advertising going out on it, but it's
And that's
well
this
positioned.
weekend?
That's the 26th and 27th,
Thank
I
you.
believe.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Kelly?
Thank you. And through you, there is a Easter egg hunt and celebration of all things Easter down at Hannah Park. I will say it's this Saturday, but I frankly don't know, but I'll know by council meeting and I'll tell you. Full thanks to our Public Works team. I haven't visited, but I'm told that the park was vacuumed yesterday so that it's impeccably clean and ready for a bunch of kids. Thank you for that.
Thank you. Councillor Nishikawa?
Torrance will be hosting a Seder dinner on Friday, and they've been doing this for many, many years, and it's a great meal to attend. But you got to book quick.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Edwards?
And I believe Chief Morrell could do an advertising for the family fire safety. Thank you.
Oh, yes, thank you. Family fire
Yeah,
safety?
through you, the Family Fire Safety Day is coming up this Saturday. So you will. Is this, no, sorry, it's the last Saturday. It's the last Saturday of the month. It's not this, it's not on the holiday. Sorry. I was actually just looking in the community calendar to see if you'd placed it in.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for that. Thank you,
No problem.
Counselor.
Are there any others? Seeing none? Moved by Councillor Bosemuth, seconded by Councillor Kent. Be it resolved that this meeting adjourn at 12:50 PM. And the next regular meeting of the General Finance Committee will be held on Wednesday, May the 14th, 2025 at 9 AM or at the call of the chair electronically from the Council Chambers Municipal Office in Port Carling, Ontario. Just before I call the vote, I just would like to confirmation as to when we would like to reconvene for council. 1:45, just for anybody attending still online, 1:45 we will be resuming for council. All those in favor? Thank you. Carries.